Chapter 199. Today, the Chu Emperor District was opened to the citizens of the royal capital. Naturally, they knew why the Chu Emperor District was opened to the public. Qin Wenyin issued a life-and-death challenge to 3 second-level Yuanfu cultivators. How could Yi Wuke and the rest reject it? If Yi Wuke cowered, from now onwards, all the glory he had would fade away. He was Yi Wuke, the most dazzling member of the younger generation of the Yi clan, the future hope of the Yi clan. Naturally, he would accept the challenge. Qin Wenyin arrived very early, even earlier than those from the Yi clan. He sat on one of the battle platforms with his eyes closed, appearing very quiet. It was as though he didn't know that his decision had attracted the attention of so many people. Mustang, Luo Huan and Fan Lu were all here. How could they miss such a battle? Even Chu Tianjiao had arrived. He sat on the azure jadeite dragon seat, staring at the silhouette of Yi Wuke. He wanted to see how Qin Wenyin would defeat Yi Wuke, Wu Chong and Wang Teng. Bai Qingsong and Autumn Snow had also arrived. Autumn Snow stared at Qin Wenyin, an indescribable feeling in her heart. If she hadn't experienced it herself, she would never have imagined that today, Qin Wenyin would challenge Yi Wuke. Would she be able to win? She didn't know why, but at this moment, in Autumn Snow's heart, she actually believed that Qin Wenyin would be able to defeat Yi Wuke. How much effort did the Emperor Star Academy put in to protect him? Now that he issued a life-and-death challenge, if he died, wouldn't that be a joke? Below the platform, Chiumo's countenance was cold as he stared at Qin Wenyin. Back then he had already had conflicts with Qin Wenyin, but now that he saw Qin Wenyin growing stronger, he couldn't help but feel extremely bitter in his heart. Luo Huan smiled as she stared at Chiumo. That's right, Chiumo, you mocked junior brother Qin back then. At that time, you were a Yuanfu cultivator, while junior brother Qin was still at the arterial circulation realm. Now, I'm afraid that junior brother Qin could kill you with a single palm strike. Chiumo's countenance stiffened as his countenance turned ashen. He was still at the first level of Yuanfu, yet Qin Wenyin had killed Sikong Mingyue with a single palm strike. He could only snort coldly as his heart was filled with jealousy. At this moment, a few figures appeared in the sky. They were none other than Yi Wuke, Wu Chong, and Wang Teng. Yi Wuke was clad in white, looking as handsome as ever. Wu Chong exuded a violent demonic aura, while Wang Teng exuded a tyrannical aura. The three of them stood in the air, staring disdainfully at Qin Wenyin. They were all geniuses at the second level of Yuanfu, yet now, they were being challenged by Qin Wenyin, who was only at the first level of Yuanfu. This wasn't something that could bring them any face. Wang Teng stared at Qin Wenyin and said coldly, "Are you sure that today is a life-and-death duel? If you die, no one will pursue the matter?" Wang Teng was naturally referring to Dai. If Qin Wenyin died and Dai wanted revenge, who in Chu would be able to stop him? If he dies, no one will pursue the matter. But if any of you dares to interfere in this battle, you will have to bear the consequences. Below the platform, Ren Qianxing coldly stared at the three of them as he spoke. Since Qin Wenyin had issued a life-and-death letter, he had absolute trust in him. Fine, there are 3 of us here. How do you want to die? Wang Teng's tone was as tyrannical as ever. Qin Wenyin was too arrogant. Their cultivation bases at the second level of Yuanfu weren't just for show. Qin Wenyin opened his eyes and stood up. His countenance was extremely calm, not even the slightest ripple could be seen in his eyes. He inclined his head slightly, staring at the 3 silhouettes in the air. It was as though he didn't even place them in his eyes. Such a cold and indifferent attitude caused Wang Teng to unleash an aura of sharpness as he lunged towards Qin Wenyin. Within Qin Wentian's body, the Yuan energy in his Yuanfu started to seethe. His blood vessels started to churn as the blood-colored inscriptions on Qin Wentian's body became more active. Qin Wentian's demeanor was undergoing a transformation. His ink-black hair fluttered in the wind as his eyes turned demonic. His physique grew even more imposing, and a blood-colored light could be seen flickering in his demonic eyes. "All of you, come at me together." Qin Wentian's voice was as calm as ever, yet when it entered the ears of the spectators, it was akin to a thunderclap, causing them to widen their eyes in shock. Did they hear it wrongly? Yi Wuke, Wang Ting, Wu Chong, any one of them was an elite at the second level of Yuanfu. And now, Qin Wenyan wanted all of them to come at him together? This caused those who had confidence in Qin Wenyan to feel that Qin Wenyan was a little too arrogant. This was simply unreasonable arrogance. Truly not knowing the immensity of the heavens and earth. Chiumo's countenance turned cold. Qin Wenyan, was he courting death? Mustang stared at Qin Wentian's silhouette, and for some unknown reason his eyes reddened. Yi Wuke, Wu Chong, and Wang Teng were the main culprits behind Mountain's death. Qin Wenyan didn't choose to challenge them one by one, because if he defeated or killed one of them, the other two would definitely not accept his challenge. As for why Qin Wenyan wanted all three of them to come at him together, Mustang actually had absolute confidence in Qin Wenyan. Since Qin Wenyan had spoken, he would definitely be able to do it. This was the impression that Qin Wenyan had always given him. Back then during the examination in the Sky Harmony City, and it was the same during the Jun Lin banquet. When he wanted to be number one, there was nothing that could obstruct his footsteps. Today, it was the same as well. Luo Huan and Fan Lu also felt the same way. Absolute trust. Unknowingly, that young man had already caused his friends to have this sort of blind trust in him. This was an unreasonable trust, yet it was something they truly felt in their hearts. Yi Wuke, Wang Teng, and Wu Chong were all stunned. Even Yi Wuke, who had always been indifferent, couldn't help but laugh at this moment. He was laughing at Qin Wenyan for not knowing what to do. Your stupidity will cost you your life. Yi Wuke mocked. After which, he turned to the other two. Since he wants to die so badly, let's grant him his wish. The three of them unleashed their 9 astral souls at the same time. The resplendent astral energy caused the spectators to be dazzled. Die! Yi Wuke's low voice rang out, as a tyrannical killing intent gushed forth from him. The three of them simultaneously reversed their positions, and in an instant, a formless storm of killing intent gushed towards Qin Wenyan. Yi Wuke's attack was like a sword, incomparably resplendent, penetrating through everything. Wu Chang's attack was like a demonic beast, incomparably tyrannical. His entire person was like a demonic beast, suppressing all his opponents. Wang Teng's attack was like a war chariot of slaughter, pulverizing all those who obstructed him. The storm of killing intent converged together, with the destination being Qin Wenyan. The hearts of the spectators pounded madly. It was as though they could see Qin Wenyan being crushed into pieces by this terrifying storm of killing intent. That storm of killing intent was howling with rage. Boom! Qin Wenyan stepped onto the platform, as a towering aura erupted forth from him. In an instant, demonic qi and blood-colored light enveloped him, as though he was clad in a halo of light. His long, jet-black hair was as straight as a sword. Qin Wenyan inclined his head, as a fearsome blood-colored demonic light erupted forth from his eyes, causing the three of them to feel a sense of pressure. However, their killing intent didn't stop. They wanted Qin Wenyan to die. Roar! A terrifying howl of rage erupted from Qin Wentian's mouth, as though he wanted to tear apart the heavens and earth. Both his palms blasted out, and the spectators only felt that at this moment, Qin Wenyan was akin to an ancient demon. His palms gave off a feeling of invincibility. The last stance of the Thousand Hands imprint, the Great Thousand Hands imprint, exploded forth, causing the entire heavens and earth to be filled with countless gigantic palm imprints. And at the same time, the attacks of the three of them slammed into each other. The terrifying storm of killing intent transformed into an intense astral wind that blasted onto the faces of the spectators, causing them to feel a burning sensation on their faces. At the same time, explosions rang out in the space where they clashed. Qin Wentian's palms propped up the heavens and earth as he stomped on the ground once more. His body actually carried the three of them as he soared up into the skies. Die! A crazed howl of rage rang out, as boundless sword light gushed forth from Qin Wentian's mouth. At the same time, both his palms trembled as another towering palm imprint blasted out. Each and every palm imprint contained a terrifying amount of astral energy. The scene of Qin Wenyan carrying the three of them as he soared up into the skies caused an intense visual impact to the spectators. They had an illusion that Qin Wenyan was the one with the highest cultivation base. The feeling he gave off was that he was filled with boundless energy. Wang Teng Dai. The rolling sound waves blasted into the eardrums of the spectators. They only saw Qin Wenyan raising his palms towards the skies. The attack he executed was actually only a high-grade human-tier innate technique, the dragon subduing fist, dragon seizing palm. However, when he executed the dragon seizing palm, it was as though he was a true king trying to capture a demonic dragon. That blood-colored palm transformed into a terrifying dragon claw as it grabbed towards Wang Teng. The countenances of Yi Wuk, Wu Chong and Wang Teng were incredibly ugly to behold. They roared in rage as their yuanfu started to churn. The astral energy from their astral palms gushed out explosively as all sorts of terrifying innate techniques blasted out towards Qin Wenyan. Only to see Qin Wenyan slamming out with his left hand as a terrifying blood-colored mountain peak whistled through the air, smashing towards Yi Wuk and Wu Chong. The falling mountain palms in his hands were getting more and more perfect. Especially after he condensed the astral energy from his heavenly hammer into the form of a mountain, it was as though a real mountain peak was blasting out from his palms. Yi Wuk and Wu Chong's attacks frenziedly broke through the mountain peak's defense, while on the other end, Qin Wenyan's palms grabbed towards Wang Teng. Get lost! Wang Teng howled in rage. The shadows of his astral souls descended as his palms blasted out attacks akin to the galloping of 10,000 horses. However, Qin Wenyan's palms actually shone with a blood-colored sword light, shattering everything in their path. The dragon-seizing palms shook the air as Wang Teng retreated. However, Qin Wenyan's palms were akin to the arms of demons. Abruptly, terrifying claws extended out, grabbing onto Wang Teng's head. No! Wang Teng's countenance drastically changed. When he looked at Qin Wenyan again, it was as though he was looking at the king of demons, the sovereign of the world. Die! A crisp sound rang out as the dragon-seizing palms crushed Wang Teng's head. The bloody scene was so shocking that it caused the hearts of countless spectators to go into a daze. Was this really an attack that a cultivator at the first level of yuanfu could unleash? At this moment, how many cultivators at the second level of yuanfu felt their hearts trembling? If they were in Wang Teng's position, this claw attack would also be able to reap their lives. Too powerful. When they looked at Qin Wenyan's silhouette again, it no longer felt like they were looking at a young man. The young man of the past had already possessed the qualifications to look down on all the geniuses in Chu. He had already stepped into the era that belonged to him. Chapter 200. Yi Wuk, Wu Chong and Qin Wenyan separated from each other. Upon seeing Wang Teng's death, an intense feeling of dread arose in their hearts. The three of them had surrounded Qin Wenyan, yet Wang Teng had already died. When they stared at Qin Wenyan again, their gazes were filled with trepidation, and their countenances were extremely unsightly to behold. In fact, in the direction of the Yi clan, many people stood up as they stared at the sky. Evidently, they were all stunned by this scene. How did Qin Wenyan become so powerful? If this was the case, wouldn't Yi Wuk be, only to see Qin Wenyan shifting his gaze onto Yi Wuk and Wu Chong. The two of them exchanged glances, as ruthless expressions could be seen on their faces. Roar! Violent waves of demonic qi gushed forth as Wu Chang's three beast-type astral souls howled. His entire person was akin to a primordial demon descending from the heavens, rushing towards Qin Wenyan. Tens of thousands of demonic beasts galloped in the air, as though they were all terrifying demonic beasts, rushing towards Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan's arms were clad in demonic armor, as the demonic light in his eyes grew even more demonic. Currently, he had already cultivated the second level of the fiend transformation art, the demon advent boundary. In addition to the power of his bloodline, he was akin to a terrifying demon king. The dragon subduing fist blasted out, as the roars of dragons echoed in the air. Incomparably violent, it collided with the tens of thousands of demonic beasts. At the same instant, the wings on Yi Wuk's back flickered as he arced through the air in a magnificent arc. Both of his palms manifested a multicolored sword as he slashed towards Qin Wenyan's throat. Qin Wenyan didn't even bother to glance at Yi Wuk. With a wave of his left hand, sword chi whistled through the air as Qin Wenyan pointed out with his finger. Instantly, tens of thousands of sharp swords transformed into beams of killing intent that shot towards Yi Wuke. Yi Wuke's countenance drastically changed as he instantly changed his attack. At the same instant, Qin Wenyan's right palm trembled several times, using an incomparably tyrannical strength to forcefully shatter Wu Chang's attack. A few beams of blood-colored light shot into Wu Chang's sea of consciousness, and the spectators only saw Wu Chang's eyes turning lifeless as his body fell from the skies. When Qin Wenyan glanced at Yi Wuke again, Yi Wuke's countenance turned somewhat unnatural. With a flap of his wings, he abruptly turned and sped away. From the exchange earlier, he already understood that it was impossible for him to defeat Qin Wenyan. At the moment of life and death, who would care about face? Life was the most important thing. The feathers of the Garuda appeared on Qin Wenyan's back as he arced through the air, resembling a true Garuda. With a swipe of his dragon-capturing hands, Yi Wuke was unable to advance any further. The direction in which Yi Wuke was fleeing was in the direction of those from the Yi clan. At this moment, the eyes of those from the Yi clan were filled with an intense desire to survive, as well as fear. No! The countenances of those from the Yi clan were extremely unsightly to behold. They had no way to accept such an ending. The dragon-capturing hands lifted Yi Wuke up into the air. As Qin Wenyan faced the members of the Yi clan, his countenance as calm as ever. So this is the genius that your Yi clan has always been proud of? Even before I stepped onto the path of cultivation, his halo had already descended upon the Sky Harmony City, pressuring the Qin clan as well as me. Qin Wenyan stared at the members of the Yi clan, as well as Bai Qingsong. And now, it's only been a year, right? Qin Wenyan mumbled to himself, but the impact of his calm words was immense. That's right, in just a short span of a year, Qin Wenyan had already defeated Yi Wuke, who had once looked down on him with disdain. Bai Qingsong stared at the pleading eyes of Yi Wuke, as he couldn't believe that this was all real. Release him. At this moment, a voice drifted over. The person who spoke was none other than the person seated on the Azure Jadeite Dragon seat, Chu Tianjiao. Chu Tianjiao was still as calm as ever, and nobody knew what he was thinking about. Yet when he spoke these 4 words, the weight of his words was extremely heavy. Yi Wuke was once again filled with hope. The eyes of those from the Yi clan also shone with a bright light. That's right, as long as Chu Tianjiao spoke, the person with the most authority in Chu had spoken, there would still be hope. Qin Wenyan didn't turn his head back. He continued staring ahead, only to hear the sound of a cracking sound. Instantly, the eyes of those from the Yi clan turned ashen, as they were filled with astonishment and terror. That fiendishly handsome youth slowly released his grip as Yi Wuke's body fell from the skies. Qin Wenyan didn't even say a single word. He directly used his actions to destroy the last strand of hope they had. Chu Tianjiao had a strange expression on his face as he froze. Although he had expected that Qin Wenyan would reject, he didn't expect Qin Wenyan to be so decisive, directly killing Yi Wuke after he pleaded for mercy. It was as though he was the one who hastened Yi Wuke's death. Qin Wenyan had undoubtedly ruthlessly slapped him in the face in front of the entire Chu country. Release him? A mocking smile appeared on Qin Wenyan's face. Mountain, he's merely a student of the Emperor Star Academy. Who has he offended? Have the person who killed him ever thought of releasing him? Have the students of the Emperor Star Academy ever thought of releasing him? When the Yi clan encircled the Qin clan in the Sky Harmony City, how many of them died? Has anyone ever thought of releasing them? The words spoken by Qin Wenyan were cold. He didn't even cast a glance at Chu Tianjiao. The surroundings of the Chu Emperor district were incomparably silent. No one spoke. It was as though they could feel the blazing anger in Qin Wenyan's heart. If not, he wouldn't have killed Yi Wuke and the other 2 in such a domineering manner. Chu Tianjiao, if you had the chance to kill me, I believe that the word release wouldn't even cross your mind, right? Qin Wenyan indifferently asked. Chu Tianjiao didn't reply, but it was exactly as Qin Wenyan had said. If he had the chance to kill Qin Wenyan, he wouldn't hesitate in the slightest. Me too. Qin Wenyan calmly spoke, his words causing the gazes of the crowd to stiffen. Me too. 4 simple words, but it was enough to announce Qin Wentian's determination. Qin Wentian then turned his gaze onto Bai Qingsong. At this moment, Bai Qingsong was truly afraid. Once upon a time, the Yi clan had descended upon the Sky Harmony City and revealed to Bai Qingsong the news of the marriage alliance between Autumn Snow and Yi Wuk. At that time, Bai Qingsong was filled with excitement and agitation. He could see the rise of the Bai clan as well as hope. Without hesitation, he kicked Qin Wentian away, betraying the Qin clan. And now, Yi Wuk had actually died in the hands of the youth he had kicked away. This feeling was like a dream. No one could understand Bai Qingsong's feelings right now. Did he regret it? He didn't know. Even if he regretted it, what could he do? The him now felt as though he had aged a lot. He was jealous of Qin Chuan, who had such an outstanding foster son. As for his 2 daughters, the genius Autumn Snow had gradually fallen, and the youngest daughter, whom he had looked down upon, had condensed an astral soul from the 4th heavenly layer. But because she despised him for repaying kindness with enmity, she broke off relations with him. And after experiencing all these setbacks, he witnessed the rise of Qin Wentian. Who could understand such a feeling? Qin Wentian. At this moment, Autumn Snow spoke. She smiled as she looked at Qin Wentian, as though a huge boulder had been lifted from her heart. I know that the Bai clan has let you down, and I have let you down as well. Sometimes, I regret the choice I made back then. After all, it was you who single-handedly allowed me to become a dazzling genius, yet what I received in return was betrayal. Not only that, the Bai clan did something unforgivable and participated in the plot against the Qin clan. I know that I don't have the qualifications to beg for your forgiveness, but I still have to say it. At this moment, Autumn Snow calmly continued, no matter how you want to deal with me, even if you want to kill me, I will accept it wholeheartedly. I was the one who asked for it, but I beg you to spare my father. He's already old and I'm no longer a dazzling genius. My younger sister, Bai Qing, left because of you. Do you know that Bai Qing is even more powerful than me? Her first astral soul was condensed from the 4th heavenly layer. That day, she cried as she told my father about it, revealing her astral soul. But because of her Wentian Gidge, she severed all ties with my father and ran away from home, never to be heard from again. You should know how much she relies on you, so I don't have the qualifications to beg you. But I beg you, for the sake of Bai Qing, spare my father. If not, in the future, if she knew that her Wentian Gidge had personally killed her father, how would she face you? Upon hearing the sincerity of Autumn Snow's words, the spectators were all moved. So the rumors back then were true. The reason why Autumn Snow could become a dazzling genius was all because of Qin Wentian. And the Bai clan had betrayed Qin Wentian. The youngest daughter of the Bai clan, Bai Qing, had actually condensed an astral soul from the 4th heavenly layer. This was simply too terrifying. Qin Wentian's heart trembled slightly as the silhouette of a young girl appeared in his mind. He could still remember the time when the young girl handed him a dagger, asking him to use her as a hostage to escape from the Bai clan. Back then, Bai Qing had been so heartbroken. Wentian Gidge. The melodious voice of the young girl resounded in the air. Qin Wentian drew in a deep breath. He had already planned to kill Bai Qingsong today, but after hearing the words of Autumn Snow, his heart wavered. If he killed Bai Qingsong, how would he face Bai Qing in the future? Qin Wentian turned his gaze onto Autumn Snow. She still had a smile on her face, but within that smile, drops of tears could be seen. In her mind, wasn't she reminiscing about the past? However, all her memories had dissipated with the wind, leaving behind only a body full of scars. Bai Qingsong, cripple your own cultivation and become an ordinary person. Qin Wentian finally spoke. He didn't want Bai Qingsong to die. Bai Qingsong's countenance faltered for a moment, before he lightly nodded his head. Lifting his palms, he abruptly slammed his palms into his own body, shattering the arterial pathways in his body. He coughed out a mouthful of fresh blood, and in an instant, he seemed to have aged by tens of years, as a few strands of white hair appeared on his head. Father! Autumn Snow supported Bai Qingsong, as she inclined her head and looked towards Qin Wentian. However, she only saw Qin Wentian slowly turning around and slowly walking away. In the end, he didn't do anything to her. Sitting on the ground, Autumn Snow started sobbing uncontrollably as she stared at the departing silhouette of her father. Now that she was free, why did she still feel so sad? Staring at the back of Qin Wentian's figure, Autumn Snow felt as though a reincarnation cycle had passed. Qin Wenyan didn't do anything to her, but why did her heart ache so much? Qin Wenyan had left, and this past event had already faded away like the wind in his heart. Only that innocent and naive lass by Qin would remain in his warm memories. Chapter 201. Qin Wentian's name once again resounded throughout the Chu country. After becoming the champion of the Junlin banquet and stepping into Yuanfu, he consecutively killed Yi Wuk, Wu Chong and Wang Teng, 3 dazzling geniuses, continuing to write a legend that belonged to him. Qin Wentian's status in the Chu country also became extremely sensitive. This young genius was revered by countless commoners, yet he was hated to the bone by the royal clan and the Yi clan. But because of Dai's existence, nobody dared to touch him. Even when the Yi clan saw Yi Wuk die in front of them, they didn't dare to act because Yi Wuk and Qin Wentian had agreed beforehand that this would be a life-and-death battle. If Qin Wentian died in battle, Dai would definitely not seek revenge. If Yi Wuk died in battle, how would the Yi clan dare to act? Outside the imperial city, in the small town next to the dark forest, the adventurers were busy. They came and went in a hurry, and when they had free time, they would chat. This was the time when they were most relaxed. Once they stepped into the dark forest, even their closest friends might betray them. You guys didn't see it yesterday. That brat Qin Wenyan is so fucking powerful. With a single roar, he killed Wang Teng. Too powerful. A burly man was currently beaming with joy as he spoke to a girl beside him. He's only 17 years of age, is he really that powerful? The girl had a look of disbelief on her face. The others beside her also came forward and asked, "Brother Ox, are you exaggerating?" Exaggerating? Brother Ox's eyes widened as he continued, "You guys didn't see it with your own eyes, so you don't know how powerful that young man is. I've already said it in a low-profile manner. In any case, with just a breath of his, he could annihilate all of us." After Yi Wuk defeated Xiao Mo, he was ranked number 4 among the 10 prodigies of the royal capital. But what happened in the end? He was defeated with a single punch. What kind of bullshit genius is he? Brother Ox, tell us the details of the battle. What does that fellow Qin Wenyan look like? Does he have a big head and thick limbs? The beautiful eyes of the girl flickered with curiosity. Yes, his arms were as thick as my arms, and his legs were like the hooves of an ox. Brother Ox grinned. Ahem. The sound of coughing drifted over from the side. Brother Nyo and the others turned their gazes over, and after that, they saw a 17-year-old young man with a bitter smile on his face. In the arms of the young man, there was an extremely adorable snow-white puppy. Qin Wentian was depressed. The rumors among the people were getting more and more unbelievable. However, this guy called Brother Nyo was really good at bragging. His beautiful image was completely destroyed. What? You don't believe me? He's about the same age as you, but you look so weak. I'm afraid you can't even withstand one punch from him. Brother Nyo continued to boast to Qin Wentian. Yes, I believe you. Qin Wentian nodded unceasingly, after which he quickened his steps and entered the dark forest. Scratching his head, he stared at Little Rascal in his arms and asked, "Little Rascal, am I really that ugly?" Qin Wentian's voice drifted into the ears of Brother Nyo and the others. They stopped in their tracks and were stunned. When they looked forward again, the silhouette of the young man gradually became blurry and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The others beside Brother Nyo all drew in a deep breath as they turned their gazes onto Brother Nyo. That must be a liar. What sort of character is Qin Wentian? How could he be such a handsome young man? Do you guys believe it? Brother Nyo laughed, but he felt that his tone wasn't confident enough. He repeated, "Yes, he must be a liar, pretending to be Qin Wentian." Right now, Qin Wentian was already at the Yuanfu realm. The chances of him encountering danger in the dark forest were naturally much lower. Although he met with some trouble, he still managed to arrive at the place he was looking for. On the vast grassland, there was a hill. Qin Wenyin stood there, surveying his surroundings. The past was still vivid in his mind, but he couldn't see the 9 mountain peaks. Back then, this was precisely the place where he met the green-robed middle-aged man in his dream. He dreamt of the spring and autumn dream, and at the same time, obtained the River Mountain catalog. The more Qin Wenyin looked at it, the more profound it became. Even now, every time he looked at it, he would gain different insights, deepening his comprehension of the martial Tao. Occasionally, he would speculate about the strength of the green-robed middle-aged man in his dream. Most probably, the middle-aged man wouldn't be any weaker than the Azure Emperor. And now, Qin Wenyin was returning to this place because he wanted to fulfill a long-cherished wish of his. Back then, when he was on the verge of death, he was brought here by the Black-winged condor. Before he left, he promised the Black-winged condor that he would gift 3 drops of his blood to the Black-winged condor when he was proficient in using the power of his bloodline. Today, he was here to fulfill his promise. The location they had agreed on was precisely here. From afar, the silhouettes of demonic beasts could be seen, but they didn't approach. Instead, they sped away while emitting low-sounding roars, as though they were summoning their king. Indeed, not too long after, a strong gust of wind could be heard whistling through the skies as a gigantic silhouette sped towards them. In an instant, the silhouette of the Black-winged condor had already arrived in the air. The Black-winged condor swooped down, landing in front of Qin Wenyin. The baleful eyes of the Black-winged condor flickered with a hint of astonishment. Although Qin Wenyin had an agreement with the Black-winged condor in the past, he didn't have too much hope in it. Humans placed great importance on benefits. Although demonic beasts were extremely vicious, when it came to craftiness, humans were definitely a notch above demonic beasts. As a demonic beast with high intellect, the Black-winged condor had a deep understanding of the personalities of humans. Hence, with regards to Qin Wenyan's agreement, the Black-winged condor was somewhat taken aback. "Senior," only to see Qin Wenyin lightly nodding his head to the Black-winged condor. After which, his left hand sliced across the index finger of his right hand. A sword light flashed and fresh blood gushed forth. The blood in Qin Wenyan's body started to seethe, as streams of blood-colored runes frenziedly flowed into the tip of his finger. That drop of blood seemed to contain a terrifying amount of bloodline power. The Black-winged condor opened its beak, and with a flick of Qin Wenyan's finger, 3 droplets of blood flew into the Black-winged condor's mouth. The Black-winged condor swallowed the droplets, and within its body, a strange energy started to seethe. Even Qin Wenyin, who was standing at the side, could faintly sense it. This caused Qin Wenyin to be extremely bewildered. Was his bloodline power really that good? Woo-woo. On the ground, Little Rascal inclined its head and stared at Qin Wenyin. That pair of quick-witted eyes of its were extremely moving, and that pitiful look on its face was extremely adorable. "You want it as well?" A strange expression appeared on Qin Wenyan's face. As the sound of his voice faded, he saw Little Rascal nodding its little head incessantly. Momentarily, Qin Wenyin rolled his eyes. Could it be that his bloodline power had some sort of unique attraction towards demonic beasts? "Open your mouth," Qin Wenyin helplessly stated. Little Rascal's eyes brightened, and it cooperated and opened its mouth. Qin Wenyin once again circulated the blood-colored runes into the blood on his finger. After which, he squatted down and allowed the blood essence to drip into Little Rascal's mouth. Little Rascal's eyes closed, and under Qin Wenyan's gaze, its body gradually grew larger. Within its body, a blood-colored light flashed, and the blood in Little Rascal's body seemed to be seething. Bloodline power? Qin Wenyan's countenance stiffened. Could it be that his blood essence had activated the demonic bloodline in Little Rascal's body? Golden-colored inscriptions flickered, and under the dumbfounded gaze of Qin Wenyin, Little Rascal's body grew even larger. Now, it was the size of an adult demonic wolf, and what was even more shocking was that its snow-white fur actually glowed with a golden light. The golden fur on its forehead grew even more distinct, forming a curved line. Its sharp claws seemed to be clad in a layer of golden armor. That armor was golden in color. Golden in color. What demonic beast is this little fellow? Qin Wenyan was speechless. However, this little fellow's intelligence was extremely high. Ever since it started following him, it could already understand human language. The black-winged condor abruptly let out a shrill screech, as though it was piercing through the heavens, causing all the demonic beasts in the surrounding area to go berserk. Their king was howling. Only then did Qin Wenyan turn his attention back to the black-winged condor. At this moment, a blood-colored light erupted from the condor's body, causing its body to be enveloped by a halo of light. Its aura caused Qin Wenyan to feel a sense of dread. However, at this moment, the black-winged condor was seriously staring at Little Rascal, as though it had seen something astonishing. At this moment, Little Rascal's eyes abruptly opened, as a golden light that caused the hearts of others to palpitate flickered within. Pooh! Little Rascal opened its beak and spat out resplendent golden runes. Upon seeing the golden runes gradually converging into a diagram, the body of the black-winged condor trembled involuntarily, as though it had seen something inconceivable. Little Rascal's gaze was fixated on Qin Wenyan's finger, as an expression of hope appeared on its face. You want me to drip a drop of my blood onto the divine inscription? Qin Wenyan asked Little Rascal. Little Rascal nodded unceasingly. Qin Wenyan smiled, as he dripped another drop of blood onto the divine inscription diagram. Instantly, the blood flowed unceasingly, swiftly merging with the divine inscription diagram. The divine inscription diagram transformed into a beam of light, directly entering Little Rascal's head. Yeah. A voice abruptly rang out in Qin Wenyan's mind, causing him to be stunned. After which, he saw Little Rascal transforming back into a snow-white puppy. His eyes flickered involuntarily as he asked, Little Rascal, is that your voice? Yeah. The voice rang out again, but this time, Qin Wenyan was extremely depressed. Looking at the adorable appearance of Little Rascal, he carried it in his arms and patted its head. Seems like you're still a wimpy kid. You can only understand words but can't speak. What yeah? I don't understand at all. Although he said this, Qin Wenyan's heart was filled with shock. Earlier, that divine inscription diagram actually allowed Little Rascal to directly transmit its voice into his mind. This was definitely a miraculous thing. The black-winged condor saw Qin Wenyan patting Little Rascal's head, as though he was treating a pet. Its head shrunk backwards, as though it was thinking about something. After which, the black-winged condor turned and lay there, turning its head back to look at Qin Wenyan. Amichem? A strange light flickered in Qin Wenyan's eyes. After which, he stepped onto the back of the black-winged condor, and in an instant, a raging wind kicked up as the black-winged condor soared into the air, continuing its journey into the depths of the dark forest. Below, a myriad of demonic beasts galloped forth, trampling the earth, emitting terrifying rumbling sounds. All of them were following the black-winged condor. As they continued deeper into the dark forest, Qin Wenyan discovered, to his shock, that there were a few demonic beasts with tyrannical auras. Similar to the black-winged condor, these demonic beasts were also flying towards a certain direction. Within the dark forest, the number of demonic beasts was like a flood. However, this wasn't the direction of the royal capital of Chu. It was the exact opposite direction, the central region of the dark forest. Chapter 202. Only when Qin Wenyan truly entered the depths of the dark forest did he realize that this place was far more mysterious and terrifying than what he had imagined. The dark forest that enveloped the royal capital of Chu was even older than the history of Chu. Nobody knew how long it had existed for, and nobody in Chu had truly unearthed all of its secrets. Maybe there were people who had entered the depths of the dark forest before, but even those characters wouldn't stay in Chu. Hence, in Chu, very few people had ever mentioned what was in the depths of the dark forest. Qin Wenyan stood on the back of the black-winged condor, watching as the myriad of demonic beasts galloped through the air, passing through a mysterious space, passing through an ancient mountain range, passing through a forest within a forest. And at this moment, the scene in front of Qin Wenyan was even more shocking. Numerous sharp mountain peaks were connected to each other, forming a barrier between the heavens and the earth, blocking out the entire sky. the myriad of demonic beasts passed through the barrier, and the sunlight grew dimmer. In front of them was no longer the dark forest, but rather a vast expanse of plains. Finally, the speed of the black-winged condor slowed down. Its body descended by several degrees, and was now flying at a low altitude. The speed of the other demonic beasts also slowed down, and they slowly advanced forward. There were even several demonic beasts that were crawling on the ground, advancing forward. The posture of these demonic beasts caused Qin Wenyan to feel a deep sense of awe. These demonic beasts gave him the illusion that they were on a pilgrimage. The myriad of demonic beasts descended upon this area at the same time. Their posture was so pious, as though they were paying their respects to the saint of all demonic beasts, the lord of all demonic beasts. At this moment, a sharp glint of light flashed in Qin Wenyan's eyes. In front of him, two incomparably gigantic statues appeared. One of the statues was that of a terrifying giant that was over 100 meters tall, while the other statue was that of a fearsome demonic beast, squatting beside the giant. Are the demonic beasts in the dark forest really here on a pilgrimage? Qin Wenyan's heart trembled. Finally, the two statues drew nearer and nearer. Even the black-winged condor landed on the ground, revealing a pious posture as it prostrated itself before the two statues, as though it was paying respects to its king. Demonic beasts were intelligent and had their own intelligence. Although they were more vicious than humans, they were more loyal to their king. This could be seen from the arrival of thousands of demonic beasts. Abruptly, Qin Wenyan felt his entire body turning cold, after which, he saw several powerful demonic beasts glaring at him and little rascal in his embrace with a cold gaze. Qin Wenyan was taken aback. It seemed that these demonic beasts were dissatisfied with the fact that he and the little fellow did not kneel down devoutly. Wisps of terrifying demonic aura enveloped the black-winged condor as they let out low roars, as if they were communicating with the black-winged condor. Little rascal seemed to have sensed the evil intentions of these demonic beasts. It leapt down from Qin Wenyan's embrace and abruptly transformed into a baleful demonic beast. The golden glow on its forehead flickered, and the resplendent golden claws seemed to be clad in demonic armor, exuding a sense of nobility. Roar! A low roar rang out as little rascal roared at these demonic beasts. After which, its body transformed into a blur as it dashed forward. Little rascal's speed was exceedingly fast, and in an instant, it appeared on the head of the demonic beast statue. Momentarily, the demonic beasts all started howling madly, wanting nothing more than to swallow little rascal whole. However, they didn't dare to advance any further. Roar! Little rascal howled to the heavens. Its solemn voice resonated for a long time. It held its head high, filled with arrogance. Finally, a few powerful demonic beasts could no longer endure little rascal's provocation. Flapping their wings, they dashed forward. However, just as they were about to reach the statue, they found that they couldn't advance any further. Rumbling sounds rang out as their bodies were all jolted back. However, they didn't give up and continued to rush forward. This repeated over and over again, causing them to cough out blood unceasingly. Such a situation caused Qin Wenyan to be extremely shocked. These demonic beasts were truly stubborn. However, what was even more shocking was that these demonic beasts were clearly obstructed by some sort of energy. Why was little rascal able to arrive on the head of the statue unscathed? At this moment, little rascal raised its head high and continued to howl in a low voice, causing Qin Wenyan to feel that it was extremely funny. To think that such a docile little fellow would actually have such an arrogant side. Yeah. Little rascal's voice suddenly rang out in Qin Wenyan's mind. An expression of bewilderment involuntarily appeared on his face, only to see little rascal turning its gaze towards him. Its sharp claws pointed at the gigantic statue that was over 100 meters tall, as though it was hinting for him to go over. As Qin Wenyan advanced, a group of demonic beasts instantly surrounded him. However, at this moment, the black-winged condor appeared beside Qin Wenyan, letting out a low roar. Only then did the demonic beasts give way, but their gazes towards Qin Wenyan were still filled with unfriendliness. As he neared the statue, all of a sudden, Qin Wenyin felt a surge of pressure. Rumble! A surge of energy abruptly gushed into Qin Wentian's body, forcing him to retreat as he groaned in agony. When he inclined his head and stared at the statue, his heart trembled violently. Earlier, he could faintly sense that the statue seemed to have a life of its own, as a terrifying wave of will energy gushed into his body. Could this statue be a dead expert? An absurd thought suddenly appeared in Qin Wentian's mind. This time around, the blood in his body seethed as an intense demonic qi gushed forth from him. Astral light enveloped his body as he advanced step by step towards the statue. This time around, the will of the statue was even more obvious. It was like an overwhelming pressure, causing his heart to pound violently as his blood vessels were suppressed. This will of the statue was too terrifying. Qin Wendian advanced with great difficulty. A thunderous boom rang out as the terrifying will of the statue slammed into Qin Wendian, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood as his body was flung through the air once again. His blood splattered through the air, and abruptly, a mysterious force enveloped Qin Wentian's blood. After which, the fresh blood transformed into a strand of silk that flowed into the statue. The earth abruptly trembled as a fearsome heavenly might gushed forth from the statue. It was like an ancient heavenly deity, causing the demonic beasts present to have a hard time breathing. Bzz. Traces of dust drifted away from the statue. The eyes of the statue gleamed with a terrifying light, causing the earth to tremble and the surrounding mountain peaks to tremble unceasingly. In the air, boundless astral light shone through the cracks in the mountain range, cascading onto the statue before extending outwards, enveloping this entire space. In an instant, a heavenly screen appeared in this space. This heavenly screen was formed from astral light, encompassing everything. Constellation. Qin Wenyin felt a sense of familiarity when he saw this scene. Oh right, that day outside the divine sect of Qin Wenyin, the middle-aged man who might be his old fogey father, wasn't he facing a group of terrifying characters who could unleash their constellations? At the instant this strange scene appeared, Qin Wendian and the demonic beasts felt as though they were carrying a terrifying mountain on their backs. However, at the same time, he felt a mysterious energy enveloping him, helping him to resist the pressure. He slowly walked forward, arriving at the side of the ancient statue as he immersed himself in this intent. Roar! Little rascal roared once more. Excitement could be seen in its eyes. The demonic beasts were all deeply shaken when they saw this scene. Right now, they were all wondering what sort of existences little rascal and that human were exactly. In a place far away from Chu, in the Ginku continent of Grand Xia, on the stargazing platform of the Venerate Heavens sect, a white-haired old man had his hands clasped behind his back as he stared at the heavens. His resplendent eyes seemed to be able to see through the past and present. With a wave of his hand, a map appeared in front of the white-haired old man. This incomparably gigantic map was spread out in the air, covering boundless territories. One could say that this map was one of the most complete maps of the Grand Xia Empire, and on it, the vast and boundless territories of Grand Xia were marked out. The old man's palm slashed through the air, and an instant later, a bright light appeared in a certain area of Grand Xia. On it, 2 words could be seen. The old man furrowed his brows. Chu was actually such a small country. It shouldn't be possible for such an existence to appear here. In that case, there could only be one possibility: ancient ruins. The demonic constellation has descended on Chu. Quickly go and investigate. The voice of the old man abruptly rang out in the Venerate Heavens sect, causing the hearts of countless experts to tremble. Their gazes all turned in the direction of the stargazing platform. Chu. This was the first time this name appeared in the Venerate Heavens sect, causing huge waves of commotion. Not only that, not too long after, the voice that appeared in the Venerate Heavens sect was also transmitted out, resounding throughout Ginku and even spreading to the other territories of Grand Xia. However, the people of Chu had no idea of this. As the current ruler of Chu, the third prince, Chu Tianjiao, was currently feeling extremely uneasy. This was the first time he felt such great waves in his heart. In front of him, there was a figure with his head lowered. This was the news he brought. causing Chu Tianjiao to feel extremely uneasy. "Are you certain?" Chu Tianjiao asked for the third time, staring at the figure in front of him. "Your subordinate is certain. Xiao Lan died outside the royal capital." Amidst the heavy atmosphere, that figure replied in a low voice, feeling an intense sense of unease. "Has the corpse been properly disposed of?" Chu Tianjiao asked again. "For now," that figure replied. "Deal with it cleanly. You should know what to do." Chu Tianjiao coldly spoke, as a cold light flickered in his eyes. That figure nodded, bowed and retreated. He naturally understood what to do. For those who knew of this matter, other than himself, no one else could be spared. But of course, at this moment, he was still thinking if he should make plans for himself. After that figure left, Chu Tianjiao drew in a deep breath. Xiao Lan's death in Chu was naturally not his doing. Xiao Lan was someone from the Xiao faction of the Nine Mystical Palace. Regardless of who killed him, as long as he died because of matters of Chu, the royal clan of Chu wouldn't be able to escape responsibility. Naturally, this wasn't done by Dai. Since Dai had already spared Xiao Lan, there was no need for him to assassinate him. Doing so would only infuriate the Nine Mystical Palace. In that case, who was the culprit? What made Chu Tianjiao even more shocked was that news of this matter quickly spread throughout Chu. This caused Chu Tianjiao to feel a chill in his heart, and he immediately thought of a solution. He immediately ordered his men to inform the Nine Mystical Palace of this matter. Chapter 203. After the news of Xiao Lan's death spread out, Dai, who was preparing to leave Chu, stayed behind. At the same time, he ordered those from the Emperor's Star Academy to leave the royal capital. As long as they left, the Nine Mystical Palace wouldn't be able to hunt them down one by one. Today, in the royal capital of Chu, Chu Tianjiao and a group of people stood there respectfully, as though they were welcoming someone. From afar, the howls of demonic beasts could be heard. Several gigantic demonic beasts could be seen flapping their wings as they soared through the air. When they arrived, they stopped and slowly descended from the skies. A raging wind gusted, buffeting the bodies of Chu Tianjiao and the rest. However, Chu Tianjiao didn't feel the slightest bit of dissatisfaction as he respectfully stared at the newcomers. A few silhouettes descended from the demonic beasts, coldly staring at Chu Tianjiao and the rest. Finally, the gaze of one of them landed on Xiao Lu. "Are you the crown prince of Snowcloud from the Xiao clan?" That person asked in a low voice, his tone cold. Xiao Lu bowed. "Junior Xiao Lu pays his respects to the elders of my clan." "You really know how to use connections." That person indifferently stated, "Explain everything clearly. I want the truth. If you lie, you will have to bear the consequences." Xiao Lu respectfully bowed as he recounted the events that transpired. He mentioned that Xiao Lan had aided the royal clan in resisting against the Emperor's Star Academy, and that the members of the Nine Mystical Palace were slaughtered by Dai. Dai spared Xiao Lan, but in the end, Xiao Lan died outside the royal capital. After hearing Xiao Lu's words, that person shifted his gaze onto Chu Tianjiao as he asked, "There should be a heavenly dipper sovereign in Chu. Why didn't you fight? Why did you allow the members of my Nine Mystical Palace to be slaughtered?" As the sound of his voice faded, a surging pressure enveloped Chu Tianjiao, causing him to feel a chill run down his spine. Junior didn't know that there was a heavenly dipper sovereign in the Emperor's Star Academy. By the time something happened, it was already too late. Junior is responsible for Xiao Lan's death, and I'm willing to accept my punishment. Chu Tianjiao humbly spoke, appearing extremely polite. However, his words implied that Xiao Lan's death had nothing to do with him. "In the past, you didn't know, but now you should know. I order the heavenly dipper sovereigns of Chu to kill Dai." That person spoke in a domineering manner, causing Chu Tianjiao's heart to turn cold, yet he didn't dare to disobey. He respectfully replied, "Junior will inform the ancestor immediately." That person didn't say anything, indicating that he had tacitly agreed. After Chu Tianjiao left, the others were still trembling in fear, not daring to say anything. Not long after, within the royal palace of Chu, a terrifying aura permeated the atmosphere, shaking the entire royal palace. after which, the silhouette of an old man walked out from the royal palace, as a towering blood might gushed towards the direction of the Emperor Star Academy. Everywhere it passed by, the crowd felt as though their bodies were about to be corroded, causing them to feel extremely unbearable. Mandate of blood. It seems like the second level of the mandate of corrosion is the mandate of blood. Those from the 9 mystical palace murmured in a low voice as they sensed the towering mandate of blood. The royal capital trembled once again, as a towering blood might bore down on the earth. Not too long after, in the direction of the Emperor Star Academy, a similarly terrifying pressure gushed forth. In that instant, everyone in the vicinity of the Emperor Star Academy felt as though their bodies were being restrained. It was extremely unbearable, as though someone was grabbing onto their throats, excruciating pain. The two terrifying forces clashed in the air above the royal capital, causing countless people to flee the area. This time around, it was different from when Dai killed the expert from the 9 mystical palace. The intent of this clash was so intense that it felt as though it could kill anyone. In the air above the royal capital, Chu Tianjiao gazed at the battlefield as he sighed in his heart. The ancestor of Chu was the protector of the 9 mystical palace. Unless the Chu country was on the verge of destruction, he would never exit his seclusion. However, because of Xiaolan's death, he was forced to fight against Dai, who was also at the Heavenly Dipper realm. This made Chu Tianjiao silently swear that if he succeeded in the future, he would definitely control the 9 mystical palace. The mandate of blood against the mandate of force. Both are at the second level, but Dai seems to have the upper hand. An expert from the 9 mystical palace stated in a low voice. Dai should be one of those fellows from the Azure Emperor Palace. As the sound of his voice faded, the experts from the 9 mystical palace stepped out, flying towards the direction of the clash. The clash between Dai and the ancestor of Chu grew more and more terrifying. Dai's astral souls were stronger, but he only had 2 astral souls while his opponent had 3. Both Dai and the ancestor of Chu had 4 astral souls, but the reason why they couldn't condense 4 was because the amount of astral energy required to condense an astral soul was extremely terrifying. Hence, even the ancestor of Chu, who had an entire country's worth of resources to support his cultivation, had yet to condense his 4th astral soul. The Chu country, to Heavenly Dipper sovereigns, was ultimately too small. Their resources were limited, and once they reached a certain level, their cultivation would be restricted by the lack of resources. Dai's long robes fluttered in the wind. Upon seeing the experts from the 9 mystical palace descending, a sharp glint of light flashed in his eyes. Although I die, I have no regrets. But before I die, I have to eliminate the threat of Chu. Dai's countenance was as calm as ever, but in his heart, he was already prepared to die. With the death of the ancestor of Chu, as long as the experts from the 9 mystical palace didn't interfere and deal with Qin Wenyan, there was no need for him to worry about Qin Wentian's safety. As he thought of this, Qin Wenyan stepped out as a towering blood might gush towards him. Qin Wenyan clenched his fists and a moment later, it was as though a myriad of palms had appeared, grabbing onto Qin Wenyan. The countenance of the ancestor of Chu stiffened. Dai, was he courting death? Dai. The withered body took a step forward, and a horrifying blood-red light stuck to Dai's body, corroding his body in an instant. However, Dai's body was getting closer and closer. Boom! The heavens and earth trembled. The old ancestor of Chu only felt his body sinking, as a boundless pressure bore down on him. At the same time, a pair of invisible palms held him firmly in place. Dai's speed increased as he transformed into a resplendent beam of light that shot towards the old ancestor. A brilliant light flashed, the will to die was born. The cold wind howled, there would be no regrets. Boom! A towering amount of energy slammed into the body of the ancestor of Chu. Dai's entire body trembled as he looked down on the ancestor of Chu. However, with a single swipe of his palm, a gigantic palm imprint appeared in the air, locking the body of the ancestor of Chu within. Have you gone mad? The ancestor of Chu howled in rage. However, Dai's countenance was still as ruthless as ever. With an abrupt clench of his fist, the body of his opponent transformed into a beam of blood-colored light, piercing into Dai's body. Dai's entire body was dyed red with blood, and at this moment, half of his silhouette had already been corroded. Swishing sounds rang out as a silvery light flashed past. Numerous chains pierced through Dai's shoulders, tightly binding his body. Dai had no strength to resist, his blood dyed the ground red. His shoulders were tightly bound by the chains, as he was dragged through the air. Xiao Lan's death has nothing to do with me. Dai maintained his composure. Even though he knew that the 9 Mystical Palace wouldn't spare him, he still had to make his stance clear. He hoped that the 9 Mystical Palace wouldn't vent their anger on the students of the Emperor Star Academy. Those from the 9 Mystical Palace didn't reply. Dai was dragged along by the chains as they soared through the air, causing the people of Chu to be stunned. Was this the power of the 9 Mystical Palace? In front of them, Chu was simply too weak. Chu Tianjiao felt an unbearable feeling in his heart. Although he had captured Dai, the ancestor of Chu had become a sacrificial offering. The 9 Mystical Palace was too ruthless. If they had acted earlier, they would have been able to save the ancestor of Chu. Yet they didn't. This was the price that Chu had to pay for Xiao Lan's death. Capture the remnants of the Emperor's Star Academy. Don't leave any survivors. Also, find out who the culprit is. In the air, the experts from the 9 Mystical Palace stood on the backs of demonic beasts as they departed. Dai's body was still bound by the chains, a tragic sight to behold. Very quickly, the experts from the 9 Mystical Palace disappeared, as though they had never appeared before. However, Chu Tianjiao knew that even if he were to enter the 9 Mystical Palace in the future, he wouldn't be able to live a good life. Pass down my command, capture and kill those from the Emperor's Star Academy. Chu Tianjiao coldly commanded. Instantly, his voice echoed throughout the entire royal palace. It seemed as though a new wave of carnage was about to erupt in the Chu country. Outside the dark forest, a white crane soared through the air. On its back, a graceful silhouette flew into the depths of the dark forest. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes were filled with anxiety and worry. She knew that Qin Wendian had entered the dark forest. Now that Dai was dead and the Emperor Star Academy was disbanded, if Qin Wendian were to be discovered by the royal clan, he would undoubtedly die. She had to inform Qin Wendian not to return. However, given how vast the dark forest was, it was exceedingly difficult to find a single person. Mo Qingqing searched the dark forest for half a month, yet she still couldn't find any traces of Qin Wendian. At this moment, there was a lot of dust on Mo Qingqing's green robes, and her countenance was extremely haggard. It was extremely tiring to live one's life in the midst of worry, and right now, she was truly afraid that Qin Wendian would return to the royal capital. Demonic beasts. At this moment, Mo Qingqing's countenance stiffened. In front of her, a few tyrannical demonic beasts were staring at her. Their gazes were ice-cold, exuding a terrifying baleful aura. Let's go! The white crane soared through the air, rapidly departing. However, the demonic beasts howled in rage as they chased after the white crane, causing the entire dark forest to tremble. With regards to all of this, Qin Wendian had no idea. He was still in the central region of the dark forest, sitting cross-legged in front of the 2 statues. A resplendent constellation enveloped this entire space. From the statue, Qin Wendian could clearly sense an extremely tyrannical mandate. It was similar to the time when he fought against Xiao Lan, when Xiao Lan directly attacked his sea of consciousness. That was a type of mandate. Naturally, Xiao Lan's strength clearly couldn't be compared to a constellation. The statue in front of him caused him to gradually gain a trace of comprehension as he came into contact with another layer of power on the martial path. Why were astral novas so powerful? What was the origin of astral constellations? Were the abilities bestowed upon Wuxiu by his astral souls truly merely the amplification of his strength and the innate attributes of his astral souls? Qin Wendian released his astral souls as he silently comprehended. Behind him, the demonic beasts were still there. Little Rascal bared his fangs and brandished his claws at them in an extremely arrogant manner. If Mo Qingqing saw this scene, she would definitely find it extremely interesting. That docile little fellow actually seemed to be taming these ferocious demonic beasts. Chapter 204. Cultivation had no sense of time, especially when one was in a unique state of comprehension. At this moment, Qin Wenyin was in an ethereal state, as though he was in a dream. He couldn't sense anything happening in the external world. Within the wondrous state, there seemed to be a powerful constellation enveloping the heavens and earth. The Wanxiang state was resplendent, and there seemed to be a mysterious energy emanating from it. This feeling grew clearer and clearer as time flowed by. Will mandate. Qin Wenyin murmured in a low voice. The resplendent heavenly hammer astral soul radiated forth, causing a mysterious force field to appear in the space around Qin Wenyin. 4 stellar martial cultivators, after Yuanfu, their astral souls would correspond to their Yuanfu. Astral souls are the energy of stellar martial cultivators, and the will of their astral souls is the will of stellar martial cultivators. An astral soul heavenly hammer appeared in Qin Wenyan's hands as he gripped it tightly. His palms felt as though they were filled with even more strength than before, as a mysterious intent permeated the surroundings. This energy was incomparably profound, yet it gave Qin Wenyin a sense of reality. It was as though his strength could grow stronger. This was no longer a simple augmentation of his astral soul. It was a type of mandate. He believed that as he continued to cultivate, this energy would only grow stronger and stronger. In fact, even his constellation would be born from this. Abruptly, Qin Wenyin opened his eyes as a sharp glint of light flickered within. Staring at the statue in front of him, it was as though he could sense the strength of the will contained within it. Qin Wenyin didn't know that at this moment, he had truly stepped into the mandate of force. The mandate he comprehended earlier was the first level of the mandate of force, strength. There were many types of mandates in the world, and each type of mandate could give rise to different types of abilities. However, the first level of the mandate of force would never change. The first level of the mandate of force was strength. As for the cultivation realms after that, he would have to depend on himself to comprehend it. Once he stepped into the second level, he would have the qualifications to condense an astral nova. At the third level, he would be able to condense his celestial phenomenon. As for the cultivation realms after Yuanfu, it was a bottleneck. Countless cultivators were stuck at this bottleneck. Other than the vast amount of cultivation resources required, one would also need a high level of comprehension to advance further. Even a genius from the 9 mystical palace like Shaolin only managed to comprehend the first level of the mandate of lightning when he was at the third level of Yuanfu. As for Qin Wenyin, his comprehension ability was exceedingly high, and under a stroke of good fortune, he managed to comprehend the mandate of lightning when he was at the first level of Yuanfu. As for my great dreams astral soul and demon sovereign astral soul, if I were to properly comprehend them, I might be able to gain some insights as well. Qin Wenyin murmured in his heart, after which, he closed his eyes and continued his cultivation. Qin Wenyin didn't know that at this moment, the royal capital of Chu was in a state of unrest. At the same time, within the dark forest, there were many terrifying characters. At this moment, Emo Qingqing was in a sorry state. She had no way of knowing which direction to go, and was being hunted by demonic beasts in all directions. Even her white crane had died in the hands of demonic beasts. She could still remember the scene of the white crane's head being smashed apart by the claws of a powerful flying beast. Emo Qingqing's eyes were red, and her beautiful robes were riddled with scars. Her beautiful countenance was extremely haggard, as though she hadn't been able to properly rest for the past few days. Wenyin, where are you exactly? Emo Qingqing had no idea of the current situation in the royal capital. She only hoped that Qin Wenyin wouldn't go out. I will definitely find you. An unwavering determination flickered in the eyes of the young girl as she prepared to move again. But at this moment, a whistling sound rang out in the air. Raising her head, Emo Qingqing saw a group of silhouettes walking over. These people stood in the air, giving her a feeling that they were extremely powerful. One of them glanced at Emo Qingqing, but very quickly he shifted his gaze away. The demonic qi in the mountain range ahead is extremely dense. Let's go take a look. A figure calmly spoke, as his silhouette moved like the wind, advancing forward. Mo Qingqing's eyes flickered as she followed after the silhouettes of those people. The experts in the air all entered the mountain range, as they whistled through the air. What a dense demonic chi, seems like we've come to the right place. But isn't the news from the Venerate Heavens sect a little too exaggerated? Could it be that that old man is really able to pry into the secrets of the heavens from the constellations? Don't underestimate the Venerate Heavens sect. After so many years, the ranking list created by the Venerate Heavens sect is the most authoritative one in Grand Xia. That old man truly has his own outstanding points. Finally, they saw the demonic beasts in the distance. Their eyes narrowed as one of them coldly laughed. So many little demons. There's even a human little fellow. In the eyes of these people, the demonic beasts in the dark forest were actually all little demons. Qin Wenyan was startled awake. He turned his head and stared at the group of experts that just arrived. His gaze froze, only to see the demonic beasts howling in rage at them as though they wanted to obstruct their advance. What a bunch of ignorant little demons. One of them laughed. After that, he waved his hand and in an instant, a terrifying blood-colored beam of light shot downwards, enveloping the demonic beasts below. In an instant, the group of demonic beasts howled as their bodies exploded, causing blood to spurt out in all directions. Will. Qin Wenyan's countenance sank. This was the same type of energy he comprehended earlier, but it was much stronger compared to his own. Senior. Qin Wenyan called out. Momentarily, that person halted his attack and turned his gaze onto Qin Wenyan. These demonic beasts are the demonic beasts of this dark forest. They came here to pay their respects to these two statues. Junior came here by chance and discovered that these two statues were extraordinary. I hope that Senior can spare them on account that these demonic beasts didn't destroy the ancient ruins. Junior will bring them away now, Qin Wenyan spoke. Little fellow, you actually have a heart that bemoans the state of the universe and pity the fate of mankind. But you are right, on account that they didn't destroy the ancient ruins. If you can bring them away, I will spare them. That person laughed. Qin Wenyan glanced at Little Rascal who had leapt into his embrace. After which, Little Rascal let out a few low roars, and the black-winged condor also let out a frenzied roar. Only then did the demonic beasts gradually calm down as they retreated from this place. However, the eyes of these demonic beasts were filled with rage, and their gazes were filled with killing intent. Qin Wenyan followed the black-winged condor as they departed. The experts in the air didn't obstruct them. To them, these demonic beasts and Qin Wenyan weren't even worth a mention. Seems like this little fellow has the ability to tame demonic beasts. An expert in the air laughed. After which, he turned his gaze onto the two statues as his countenance turned heavy. The demonic beasts departed, trampling the earth. Qin Wenyan walked out, only to see that there were even more experts in the air. He couldn't help but to sigh in his heart, to think that this ancient ruins would attract so many terrifying characters. Let's go. Qin Wenyan spoke in a low voice. The silhouette of the black-winged condor soared up into the air, departing into the distance. The roars of demonic beasts drifted over, and as Qin Wenyan's gaze drifted over, his eyes narrowed. Qingqing. Qin Wenyan directly leapt down, and roared in rage at the demonic beasts surrounding Mo Qingqing. Scram. Little Rascal transformed, transforming into a terrifying golden-colored primordial demon. With a howl of rage, it shocked the surrounding demonic beasts. Roar! A golden bolt of lightning arced through the air, and a demonic beast that was attacking Mo Qingqing had its neck bitten off, falling to the side. Little Rascal supported its body, and its cold golden eyes swept over the demonic beasts, exuding an incomparably cold aura. Qingqing. Qin Wenyan turned his gaze onto Mo Qingqing. Right now, Mo Qingqing was covered in blood, and her aura was unstable. Her countenance was extremely haggard, and the instant she saw Qin Wenyan, her eyes reddened. Coughing a few times, a smile appeared on her face as she walked to the side of Qin Wenyan. Opening her arms, she hugged Qin Wenyan tightly. You bastard, I've been searching for you for a long time. Mo Qingqing's delicate body trembled lightly in Qin Wentian's embrace. Qin Wenin only felt a wave of guilt, and he lightly patted her back, stroking her hair as he spoke in a low voice. "Everything's fine now, everything's fine now. I'm so afraid that you would return to the royal capital." Mo Qingqing spoke in a low voice. "What happened?" Qin Wenin felt somewhat bewildered. Xiao Lan died, and several experts from the 9 mystical palace invaded Chu, causing the royal ancestor to fight against Senior Dai. The royal ancestor died in battle, and Senior Dai was heavily injured and was brought away by the 9 mystical palace. And now the royal clan is going all out to hunt down the students of the Emperor Star Academy, killing them all without mercy. Especially you. Mo Qingqing's words caused Qin Wenian to feel a chill in his heart as his aura fluctuated violently. The two of them separated, and Mo Qingqing stared at Qin Wenian. "Wenian, don't return to Chu, okay? I'll go with you, we'll roam the world together." Qin Wenian stared at the haggard countenance of Mo Qingqing, yet her beautiful eyes were still as clear as ever. Risking her life to enter the dark forest? Was it just to tell him that the royal capital was in danger? Silly lass. Qin Wenian kissed Mo Qingqing's forehead as he hugged her tightly once more. "Qingqing, Qin Wenian, will never betray you in this life." Mo Qingqing's body trembled as her eyes reddened. However, she still had a radiant smile on her face, as beautiful as ever. Everything was worth it. It was as though she already knew what Qin Wenian would do. He, who valued relationships and loyalty, would still want to return to the royal capital. In that case, she was willing to accompany him. Regardless of whether he ascended to the heavens or stepped on the Yellow Springs path, her heart would never waver. Qin Wenian inclined his head as he stared into the distance. Over there was the direction of the royal capital of Chu. This trip to the royal capital, he, Qin Wenian, swore that he would definitely make the royal clan of Chu history. Chapter 205. In the royal capital of Chu, within the royal palace, within an elegant villa, there was a group of armored soldiers standing guard outside, exuding an austere killing intent. In the room, a row of young men and women were kneeling in front of the bed. In front of them, the Emperor of Chu was on the verge of death, as though he would pass away at any moment. "Wu Wei." The sovereign king looked at a young man, his voice weak. "Father." Chu Wei stared at his dying father as he sighed in his heart. No matter if you were an emperor or a commoner, when you were on the verge of death, you would always be in such a state. No wonder there were so many people in the Grand Xia continent who were all pursuing the path of cultivation. Not only did the path of cultivation grant them immense strength, it also granted them a longer lifespan. "After I die, help your younger brother to protect the bloodline of the royal clan of Chu." The lifeless eyes of the Emperor King flickered with a hint of hope as he stared at his eldest son. Why didn't Big Brother inherit the throne? Upon hearing the words of the Emperor King, the eyes of the person on the right of Chu Wei widened as he spoke with an unconvinced tone. Even if his father was about to die, he still wanted to speak up for his elder brother. In his eyes, his eldest brother, Chu Wei, was the most perfect of them all. He was also the most suitable candidate to inherit the throne of Chu. As for his third brother, he didn't like him at all. The emperor stared at the second prince, Chu Mang, as he sighed in his heart. These 3 sons of his were all exceedingly outstanding. The first prince, Chu Wei, was indifferent to fame and fortune because he couldn't cultivate. He didn't yearn for power struggles, but even so, he had a terrifying intellect and methods. Not only that, his character was extremely well-liked. Other than the fact that he couldn't cultivate, he could be said to be perfect, even surpassing Chu Tianjiao. The Emperor King was even thinking that if he wanted to seize the throne, how confident would Chu Tianjiao be? The second prince, Chu Mang, was impulsive and clumsy. His IQ was the lowest, but his martial prowess was the highest. He was the most outstanding out of the 3 brothers, and in the entire Chu country, there weren't many who were as dazzling as him. If Chu Wei was the one with the highest level of talent in the martial Dao, that would be the true definition of perfection. Sadly, nobody was perfect. The third prince, Chu Tianjiao, was undoubtedly the most suitable candidate for him and was deeply loved by him. The only flaw he had was that he was too arrogant. "Shut up!" Chu Wei berated Chu Mang. Momentarily, Chu Mang turned his head away, refusing to look at the emperor, causing the emperor to sigh endlessly. They were all his sons, how could he not love them? "Father, as long as I exist, the bloodline of the royal family will exist," Chu Wei calmly stated. The emperor stared at him as though waiting for him to say something else. Sadly, Chu Wei didn't say that he would help his younger brother, Chu Tianjiao. He only promised that as long as he was alive, the bloodline of the royal clan would survive. Chu Tianjiao naturally understood as well. The sovereign king turned his gaze away and slowly closed his eyes. His breathing gradually weakened, very swiftly. The sound of the emperor's death resounded throughout the entire Chu country. Outside the royal palace, countless nobles of Chu entered. They had been waiting outside the royal palace for a long time. The emperor who once shook the heavens and earth had finally closed his eyes forever. The Chu country would soon become the world of the younger generation. Naturally, there would be someone to take care of the emperor's funeral. At the highest peak of the royal palace, Chu Wei and Chu Tianjiao stood together, gazing down at the majestic royal palace. Behind them, there was another person. This person was none other than Chu Tianjiao's personal guard, a peak-level Yuanfu expert. Although Chu Tianjiao's name wasn't that famous in Chu, Chu Tianjiao knew very well how powerful Chu Tianjiao was. In the entire royal clan, there were only a few people who could be compared to him. "Elder brother, I'm about to succeed the throne." After a long period of silence, Chu Tianjiao finally spoke. Chu Wei lightly nodded his head, only to hear Chu Tianjiao continuing, "Father always wants me to consult you. Elder brother, what do you think I should do after I succeed the throne?" Today, the Chu country is already in a precarious situation. There's a possibility that we might be consigned to eternal damnation at any moment. Chu Wei calmly stated, "Don't fight with the Qin clan anymore. Vindicate Qin Wu, grant Qin Wu the position of the martial king, and allocate a few cities to the Qin clan. At the same time, don't hunt down the students of the Emperor's Star Academy. It's enough for the 9 mystical palace to see, but don't push things too far." "Elder brother, aren't you underestimating the power of the royal clan? The Qin clan started a rebellion, and the royal clan admitted their mistakes. What does this mean? Isn't this the same as slapping our own faces? The Emperor's Star Academy is already like fire and water with our Chu country. How can we coexist? The best way is to exterminate them all. As for those who manage to escape, they might grow stronger, but don't tell me that our royal academy and our royal clan won't grow stronger." Chu Tianjiao gazed at the distant lands, his calm voice not concealing his wild ambitions. "Is that so? Let's not talk about the others. If Qin Wenyan from the Emperor's Star Academy breaks through to the Heavenly Dipper realm before you, with the current strength of the royal clan, how can you protect yourselves?" Chu Wei calmly asked. "That's why he has to die." Chu Tianjiao's voice contained a strong determination. "If he has already left, why do you want him to die?" Chu Wei asked. "When Qiu Mo was captured, he had already pledged his allegiance to us. He said that he would be able to find Mustang. With Mustang here, with Qin Wentian's personality, how could he not come?" Chu Tianjiao slowly shifted his gaze onto Chu Wei. Chu Wei similarly stared at Chu Tianjiao. Shaking his head, he turned and departed, leaving behind a message. "If you cause the Chu clan to fall into danger, I will replace you." "Audacious!" The person behind Chu Tianjiao roared in rage, as a tyrannical aura gushed forth, enveloping Chu Wei. "Impudent!" Chu Tianjiao turned his head and berated his protector, "That's my elder brother." That protector nodded his head, as his aura dissipated. After which, Chu Wei once again departed the area. Chu Tianjiao's eyes flashed with a terrifying sharpness as he murmured in his heart, "Although father never said it out loud, he always felt that I'm inferior to you in all aspects other than strength. I will prove it to you." In one of the courtyards of the royal clan of Chu, the Mo clan, Mustang, Luo Huan and Fan Lu were all present. Before Dai was captured, they had no way of leaving the royal capital. Mo Qingqing had informed Old Gu and arranged for them to stay here. Someone's coming. Mustang, who was seated in a pavilion, abruptly opened his eyes. Was there still no way to escape after all? Luo Huan, Fan Lu, go to the lake, Mustang suddenly commanded. If I'm not here, they might suspect something. Fatty, go to the lake, there's still time. Luo Huan knew that her teacher's senses were extremely strong, and they shouldn't have been discovered yet. Fan Li's eyes flickered, his countenance extremely unsightly to behold. After which, he heavily nodded his head. Teacher, Sister Luo Huan, be careful. I will think of a way to save you. After speaking, Fan Li dived into the depths of the lake. Only by doing so would he be able to conceal his aura. Indeed, not long after, the courtyard was surrounded. When Mustang and Luo Huan saw a silhouette in front of them, their eyes turned incomparably cold. Chiao Mo, you traitor! Mustang coldly spat. A wise man submits to circumstances. Luckily, it wasn't difficult to find all of Mo Qingqing's residences. After searching through them one by one, I finally found her. Most probably, Qin Wenyin has also been hidden by her. Chiao Mo's eyes flashed with a hint of jealousy. Mo Qingqing, the most perfect woman in Chu, was willing to risk her life for the sake of Qin Wenyin. Normally, she would ignore him, one of the 10 prodigies of the royal capital. Chiao Mo, have you forgotten about Yi Wukei's ending? Luo Huan stared cold at Chiao Mo. He. Chiao Mo's countenance turned frosty. He knew that Qin Wentian's strength had already surpassed him, and this caused him to be filled with jealousy. Luo Huan, although she isn't as beautiful as Mo Qingqing, she can still be considered one of the most beautiful women in the world. Look at that sexy figure of hers, he. Chiao Mo didn't conceal the greed in his eyes as he swept his gaze over Luo Huan's body. Luo Huan's countenance turned extremely unsightly. I will get the third prince, no, his majesty, to bestow you to me. Chiao Mo didn't conceal his true nature. Even if he couldn't obtain Mo Qingqing, it was still a wonderful thing to obtain Luo Huan's body. I really want to see how long the emperor's authority can last. Mustang's voice was ice cold. Currently, the leaders of the Emperor's Star Academy should have already met up with those from the Qin clan. The news of Mustang and Luo Huan being captured quickly circulated around the royal capital. This was undoubtedly the royal clan's own doing. They wanted Qin Wendian to appear. Chu Tianjiao had already viewed Qin Wendian as a huge threat. Such a character would definitely break through to Heavenly Dipper in the future. He had to die. And at the same time when Mustang and Luo Huan were captured, news circulated from the front lines. The Qin clan had formed a few elite troops, and they were invincible as they rapidly advanced towards the royal capital. There were rumors that these elite troops were the elites of all the troops under the Qin clan's control. Not only that, there were also many experts from the Emperor's Star Academy, including the vice-headmaster of the Emperor's Star Academy. These people were all terrifying characters that could easily take the head of an enemy general. Naturally, the troops of the royal clan had no way to defend against them. Naturally, other than the experts from the Emperor's Star Academy, in this war between the Qin clan and the royal clan, the Qin clan's troops had also displayed an astonishing level of strength. There were even many powerful Yuanfu cultivators among them. This was especially so for the elite troops that were currently advancing towards the royal clan. This caused people to faintly feel that the strength of the Qin clan in the Sky Harmony City was only a small portion of their total strength. Maybe the all-powerful troops that followed Qin Wu all those years ago had never truly disappeared. Not only that, they had even nurtured many descendants. All of these undoubtedly indicated that the royal capital of Chu was about to welcome a violent storm. This storm was even more intense compared to the one between the royal clan and the Emperor's Star Academy. Because this time around, other than the Emperor's Star Academy, the strength of the Qin clan was also starting to erupt. And just as this storm was brewing, the young man who was determined to take revenge stepped on a demonic beast whose eyes flickered with a golden light as he exited the dark forest and entered the royal capital. Chapter 206. In the royal palace of Chu, a storm was brewing. The hearts of the people trembled as they felt the terrifying pressure of the black clouds looming over the city. The Qin clan's troops broke through the defenses of many cities, advancing at a frenzied pace. Just as the Chu country's troops were about to move, the Qin clan's troops would suddenly change their route and advance towards another city. Not only that, the troops that broke through the encirclement of the Qin clan were all elites, and their speed was extremely fast, causing the defenses of the Chu country to be filled with flaws. Such a domineering attitude caused the people of Chu to truly feel the might of the Qin clan, which had been in seclusion for so many years. The people of Chu faintly understood why the royal clan was so insistent on making a move against the Qin clan in the Sky Harmony City. Maybe they had long sensed it. The struggle for power was always so cold and complicated, filled with schemes and trickery. Even Qin Hao himself didn't hesitate to risk his life. Finally, the royal clan of Chu gave the order to relax their defenses. The troops that were stationed in the royal city were all retreated, while the elite troops were mobilized to the royal capital to guard the last line of defense. At the same time, the other troops were to be prepared to counterattack at any time. This was undoubtedly the declaration of the decisive battle between the two sides. Since the Qin clan had sent all their forces to advance towards the royal capital, the royal clan would naturally clash with the Qin clan in the royal capital. The entire Chu Dragon Guards went into a frenzy, as the elite troops all rushed towards the royal capital. For a period of time, the situation in the royal capital attracted the attention of countless people in Chu. The struggle for power, how would the ending be? At this moment, the confidence that the people of Chu had in the royal clan was no longer as strong as before. In fact, there were even some who suspected that the Chu clan, which had existed for over 3,000 years, would fall this time. Even before Qin Wendian stepped into the royal capital, he had already received all sorts of news. Hence, he disguised himself and snuck into the Divine Weapon Pavilion. And Liu Yan's attitude towards him had always been very good, and she didn't really like the royal clan. In the Divine Weapon Pavilion, he already had extraordinary authority. Naturally, his arrival at the Divine Weapon Pavilion was a secret, and he didn't reveal it to anyone. After 7 days of closed-door seclusion, Qin Wendian utilized the immense manpower and resources of the Divine Weapon Pavilion to forge divine weapons. The hearts of the Grandmasters were all filled with waves of shock. They had never seen someone inscribing divine imprints in such a frenzied manner. It was as though the entire Divine Weapon Pavilion revolved around him. Qin Wendian naturally wouldn't let the Divine Weapon Pavilion suffer a loss. After frenziedly forging divine weapons, he left behind many treasures for the Divine Weapon Pavilion. There were even some precious third-ranked divine weapons. At the same time, Liu Yan contacted the Sky Transport Network, one of the 3 largest markets in Chu. After paying a huge sum of money, they were allowed to transport divine weapons out of the royal capital. Everything was carried out in secret. Of course, this time around, the Sky Transport Network and the Divine Weapon Pavilion had reaped great benefits. In times of chaos, it was easier for them to maximize their benefits. The royal clan finally sensed that something was amiss, but it was already too late. The Sky Transport Network had already transported the divine weapons away, and Qin Wendian had also left the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Now that the royal clan was already in a precarious situation, how would they dare to vent their anger on the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the Sky Transport Network? After receiving the divine weapons transported by the Sky Transport Network, the elites of the Qin clan were like tigers that had grown wings. They madly advanced forward, and finally, all the elites of the Qin clan were stationed outside the royal capital. On top of the city walls, a row of experts stood shoulder to shoulder. The current emperor of Chu Tianjiao, stood atop the city walls, gazing into the distance. The number of experts stationed outside the royal capital was so vast that one couldn't see the end of them with a single glance. They were sharpening their blades, and their eyes were filled with a fiery light. That was a kind of fanaticism, a fanaticism for power, a fanaticism for revenge. As long as they could take down the last city, the Chu country would have a new ruler. Have you found Qin Wendian? Chu Tianjiao calmly asked. No one could tell whether he was happy or angry. Not yet. Someone behind him bowed as he replied, "We've already monitored the movements of the Sky Transport Network and the Divine Weapon Pavilion. If Qin Wenyan appears again, we'll definitely capture him." Announced the news. 3 days later, Mustang will be executed in the Chu Emperor District. Luo Huan will be given to Qiao Mo, Chu Tianjiao calmly stated. The person behind him respectfully replied, "I'll handle it immediately." After which, the person bowed and retreated, departing the area. It seemed like the emperor was forced into a corner. Who would have thought that Qin Wenyan, who was wanted by the royal clan, would actually give such a huge gift to the troops of the Qin clan? This was extremely disadvantageous to the royal clan. Very quickly, the news spread throughout the royal capital. 3 days later, at the place where Qin Wentian's name shook the entire Chu country, the royal clan would execute Qin Wentian's master, Mustang, and also give Luo Huan to Qiao Mo. This news caused Qiao Mo to be extremely unhappy. His reputation had been completely ruined, but when he thought of Luo Huan, he decided that after this matter was concluded he would leave Chu. In the bamboo hut, the flowing river water was quiet and serene. Qin Wenyan sat by the riverside, as Emo Qingqing quietly sat beside him. Naturally, she had also received the news, and was extremely unhappy with Qin Wenyan in her heart. Chu Tianjiao actually dared to use Mustang and Luo Huan to threaten Qin Wenyan. From this, one could see how unscrupulous Chu Tianjiao was. Such a royal clan of Chu was truly on the verge of collapse. At this moment, Qin Wenyan stood up and walked back, arriving at the grass hut. Here, a veiled maiden quietly sat there, as though she had always been here. Upon seeing Qin Wenyan walking over, she inclined her head, as her limpid eyes stared at Qin Wenyan. However, she gave off an aura of coldness. Qin Wenyan had always known that there would be such a character following him. Even when he entered the dark forest, she was still as clean and elegant as ever. This caused Qin Wenyan to speculate, how strong was she exactly? "Fairy Qin Mei sent you here?" Qin Wenyan stared at her as he asked in a low voice. The maiden only stared at him, not saying a word. Qin Wenyan saw the helplessness in her eyes as he asked again, "In the past, weren't you always protecting me in the shadows? Why are you so close to me now?" That pair of eyes continued to stare at him, yet she remained silent. "Sorry for disturbing you." Qin Wenyan turned and departed. "There are many people watching this place, I have to ensure your safety." A melodious voice rang out. Qin Wenyan turned his head, and a smile appeared on his face as he stared at that pair of beautiful eyes. "In that case, will you help me deal with the others?" Qin Wenyan asked. The maiden lightly shook her head. Qin Wenyan still exuded a cold and unapproachable feeling. "Okay." Qin Wenyan laughed. "My name is Qin Wenyan, what about you?" The eyelashes of the maiden flickered, as though she was considering for a moment. After which, she inclined her head and stared at Qin Wenyan. "Qin. What a nice name." Qin Wenyan smiled at Qin before turning and departing. Emo Qingqing, upon seeing Qin Wenyan walking over, teased, "Who do you think is more beautiful, her or me?" Qin Wentian's eyes flickered. When he and Emo Qingqing were in the Celestial Lake Palace, they had both seen Qing Er's original appearance. Her beauty was breathtaking. Qing Er's beauty was different from Emo Qingqing's. Emo Qingqing's beauty was graceful, gentle, and filled with youthful vitality. Qing Er's beauty was more refined, cold, like a celestial maiden in the mortal world. "Are you jealous?" Qin Wenyan laughed. "Pff." Emo Qingqing rolled her eyes at Qin Wenyan. However, seeing that Qin Wentian's mood had improved, she was also happy. At this moment, not far away, a figure slowly walked over to Qin Wentian's side. "How is it?" Qin Wenyan calmly asked. "Quite a few people are willing to participate. The pavilion lord wants me to ask you, how many people do you want to hire?" The other party asked. "How strong are the people we can hire?" Qin Wenyan asked again. "Based on the value of the divine weapon you inscribed, we should be able to contact about 20 mid-tier Yuanfu cultivators." 20 then. 30 low-tier Yuanfu cultivators. First, I'll give them a low-tier, third-rank divine weapon and let them choose freely. The Divine Weapon Pavilion will pay for them on my behalf. There shouldn't be any problems, right? Qin Wendian asked in a low voice. We will arrange it. That person nodded his head. Do you have any other instructions? Borrow the power of the intelligence network. Regardless of the cost, help me find out the movements of the important figures of the Chu royal clan, including their meals and daily activities. Qin Wendian spoke in a low voice. Every once in a while, there will be people reporting to me. Also, the movements here are all under our control. If there are any movements, we will immediately send someone to inform you to evacuate and prepare a new location. Qin Wendian nodded his head. He knew that a terrifying net had already been weaved here. This was also what Qin had said earlier. There were many people watching this place. I'll take my leave first. That person bowed and retreated. Although his countenance was calm, his heart was filled with shock. This was the most outstanding divine inscriptionist in the history of Chu. Using his talent in the Tao of divine inscriptions, he obtained the support of the Divine Weapon Pavilion. This time around, no one knew how the storm in Chu would develop. This was a gamble filled with uncertainties. In the blink of an eye, the 3 days Chu Tianjiao spoke of arrived. Today, the Chu Emperor District was garrisoned with a large number of soldiers. Not only that, some of these ordinary characters were actually extremely tyrannical. On the battle platform below the Azure Jadeite Dragon Throne, Mustang was tied up. His robes were dyed red with fresh blood, and his hair was incomparably disheveled. Evidently, he had suffered a lot in the past few days. Luo Huan was also extremely haggard. Her face was still adorned with a seductive smile, and when her gaze swept past Qiuemo couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. Very soon you will be mine. Qiuemo stared at Luo Huan's voluptuous breasts, the lust in his eyes unmasked. Now that his reputation in Chu had been completely ruined, he became even more brazen and unbridled, revealing his malevolent face. Luo Huan laughed, a laugh that caused Qiuemo to feel a piercing pain in his bones. Qiuemo, do you believe that you will die miserably? Luo Huan giggled. Qiuemo coldly snorted, you are truly stubborn. Tonight I will let you taste the benefits of being stubborn. Staring at Luo Huan's alluring figure, Qiuemo's heart pounded. Why isn't His Majesty here yet? Qiuemo's gaze shifted in the direction of the Azure Jadeite Dragon Throne. Today, why wasn't Chu Tianjiao here? At this moment, Qiuemo discovered that several people were starting to stir. These people were all experts that he had arranged to ensure that Qin Wenyan wouldn't be able to escape even if he grew wings. The troops of the Qin clan are attacking the city. A voice drifted into Qiuemo's ears, causing him to be stunned. The timing of the Qin clan's attack was so accurate. Outside the royal capital, the sounds of battle shook the heavens. The people in the royal capital could feel a terrifying pressure permeating the atmosphere. There were even some Yuanfu cultivators that directly soared through the air, killing their way into the royal capital. The army outside the city had launched the toughest attack on the Chu kingdom's imperial city. Chapter 207. At the entrance of the royal capital, a blood-colored light flooded the skies as a chaotic aura enveloped the entire space. Chu Tianjiao calmly stood atop the city gate, with several experts standing guard behind him. Qin Wu. His gaze seemed to penetrate through space as Chu Tianjiao stared at a silhouette on the ground in front of him. That person was clad in armor, and his eyes shone with a bright light. Similarly, his gaze penetrated through the rain of blood, landing on Chu Tianjiao. From Qin Hao, Chu Tianjiao could clearly sense that he was extremely shrewd and scheming. After enduring for so many years, Qin Hao had always been hiding in the Sky Harmony City, yet he was still able to control the operations of such a huge organization. Such a character was definitely extremely terrifying. But from Chu Tianjiao, Qin Hao could sense a completely different aura. Chu Tianjiao's aura was extremely sharp. Chu Tianjiao, who was the emperor of Chu, radiated an intense sharpness. He wanted to pacify Chu, to prove that he, Chu Tianjiao, was capable of doing so. For this goal, no matter what price he had to pay, he wouldn't hesitate. However, Chu Tianjiao didn't know that in a pavilion not far away from the royal capital, a white-robed figure was staring in the direction of the royal capital with a look of disappointment on his face. This person was none other than the first prince, Chu Wei. Naturally, the current him was no longer the first prince, and Chu Tianjiao had yet to confer him the title of emperor. On both sides of Chu Wei, there were two people. One of them was his younger brother, Chu Mang. The other was ranked third among the 10 prodigies, immortal drunken wine. He had always been good friends with Chu Wei. Do you have any thoughts on this? Immortal drunken wine asked in a low voice. Third brother, he's too impatient. Chu Wei calmly replied. This is definitely not a good thing. Such an extreme method is his style, swift and decisive. If he wins, he'll be able to pacify everything. But if he loses, he'll lose everything. Why not replace him? Immortal drunken wine calmly spoke, as though he was speaking of an extremely ordinary matter. He had always known that this good friend of his was an outstanding character. As long as he willed it, the struggle for power in Chu would end with his victory. With regards to this, immortal drunken wine had no doubts. If I really can't control the situation, I'll consider it. Chu Wei calmly replied. I promised my father that the Chu clan must not be destroyed. Let's go take a look at the situation at the Chu Emperor District. Since they are attacking the city with all their might, there should be people moving there. Chu Wei turned and departed the area, with Chu Mang and immortal drunken wine following behind him. They naturally believed that the Chu Emperor District would make a move. But even if they could think of this, how could Chu Tianjiao not think of it? Then what about Qin Wenyan? How could he not think of it? The current Qin Wenyan was no longer the simple young man of the past. The royal palace of Chu was exceedingly calm. Occasionally, there would be people rushing into the royal palace to report the military situation. The battle outside the royal palace had attracted the attention of everyone. Undoubtedly, the royal palace was the most concerned about this. Outside the high walls of the palace, the soldiers were standing guard. However, at this moment, a loud shout suddenly rang out. Enemy attack! The voice instantly broke the silence outside the palace. The group of soldiers looked outside and saw a group of masked men in black rushing over. Their speed was terrifyingly fast. None of them released their astral souls. However, when the black-robed cultivators advanced in the air, the countenances of the Yuanfu cultivators all turned ashen. All of them were at the Yuanfu realm, and they knew that death was the only path left for them. Puchi sounds rang out, and very quickly, the ground was left with a rain of blood. The group of black-robed men leaped and stepped into the imperial palace. However, at the same time, the people on the watchtower in the imperial palace had already noticed the commotion here. They sent out a black smoke signal, and in an instant, the imperial palace was in chaos. The experts guarding the imperial palace all rushed towards the direction of the smoke signal. How many years had it been since the royal palace of Chu was invaded? But today it was. Not only that, the timing was so precise. Today, a battle of life and death was taking place outside the royal palace, and there were too many experts there. Who dares to be so audacious? A thunderous voice boomed out. Even if the battle was taking place outside the royal palace, there were still sufficient guards within the royal palace. Naturally, there was no lack of Yuanfu experts. But at the same time, a silhouette soared through the air, exuding a fearsome aura. Similarly, this person was also a peak-level Yuanfu expert. This made many people realize that this sneak attack had been planned meticulously. The Watermoon Pavilion was the residence of the little princess of Chu. Because of the chaos in the royal palace, she didn't casually roam around. However, when the little princess of Chu saw a group of masked men in black rushing over, she knew that the storm in Chu this time around was even more terrifying than what she had imagined. These people had long since investigated the location of her residence, and they also knew that among the princesses of the royal palace, her residence was the closest to the royal palace. Little princess, quickly leave. A serving girl stepped forward as she spoke to the little princess. I won't be able to leave. The little princess shook her head. Third brother used Mustang to threaten Qin Wenyan. Now, there's someone who wants to use the same method to deal with him. I'm sure that the Chu Emperor District and the Royal Palace have no idea what's going on here. Although she was young, she was extremely intelligent. Today, the battle outside the Royal Palace as well as the Chu Emperor District had mobilized too many experts, causing the Royal Palace to be completely empty. Not only that, the enemy had over 50 experts, and all of them were at the Yuanfu realm. There were even some at the peak of Yuanfu. When such a group of experts gathered together and launched an attack, how could the current strength of the Royal Palace defend against them? Unless they gathered all the remaining forces within the Royal Palace. However, by that time, the enemy would have already left. The little princess was quickly abducted by the group of masked men. Not only that, when the enemy retreated, not many dared to obstruct them. This caused the hearts of the people within the Royal Palace to be filled with fear. They were currently experiencing an unprecedented defeat. However, they were also pondering, who was it that had the ability to mobilize such a terrifying force to battle? If such a force was deployed outside the Royal Palace, it would be sufficient to change the outcome of the battle. Demonic beasts immediately flew out from the Royal Palace, frenziedly making their way outside the Royal Palace as well as in the direction of the Chu Emperor District. Not long after, the news of the abduction of the little princess began to spread, and in a very short period of time, it had already spread far and wide. In the Chu Emperor District, the hearts of the people trembled. The countenances of the crowd on the viewing platform were all ashen. Many experts from the Yi clan were present as well. Today, they had laid out an inescapable net, preparing to take Qin Wentian's life. But now, the little princess had actually been abducted. How were they supposed to execute Mustang? At this moment, not far away from the Chu Emperor District, a silhouette slowly walked over. Upon seeing this silhouette, the gazes of the countless people in the Chu Emperor District all froze. Qin Wentian had finally appeared. Nobody obstructed Qin Wentian's path. Behind him, there were still a few people following behind him. As he walked towards Mustang and Luo Huan, an apologetic look could be seen in his eyes. "Teacher, Sister Luo Huan, I've caused you to suffer." Qin Wentian spoke in a low voice, as though there was no one else present. "I knew you would come." Luo Huan giggled as a light smile hung on her face. She didn't know why, but she was filled with confidence towards this junior brother of hers, who wasn't considered to be very strong. Luo Huan glanced at Qiao Mo beside her, as an unmasked look of mockery flashed in her eyes. "Qiao Mo, didn't you say that you wanted to kill junior brother Qin?" "He's right there, go ahead." Qiao Mo's countenance stiffened, as he stared at Qin Wentian. A malevolent light flickered in his eyes, as though there was a deep hatred between him and Qin Wentian. "His Majesty has ordered that if Qin Wentian appears, he shall be killed without mercy." Qiao Mo glanced at the people on his left and right, before raising his head to look at the silhouettes in the viewing platform. However, nobody moved. Those experts only moved closer to Mustang and Luo Huan, as they coldly stared at Qin Wentian. Yet, nobody dared to make a move. "Is the little princess in your hands?" An old man's eyes were as sharp as swords, as he stared at Qin Wentian. "What do you think?" Qin Wentian stared at him as he calmly replied. "What do you want?" The old man stared at Qin Wentian as he asked. "Change the person." Qin Wentian simply replied. However, the old man fell silent. Chu Tianjiao was currently the emperor of Chu. His order was to kill Qin Wentian without mercy. If they missed this opportunity, it would be even more difficult to kill Qin Wentian in the future. Hence, today he personally took charge of this gathering, in order to prevent Qin Wentian from bringing more experts with him. "I'm unable to agree to your request," the old man faintly stated. He needed to wait for Chu Tianjiao's order. "I won't wait, and I don't have the time to play with you. Within the time it takes for an incense to burn, if you don't release them, you will bear the consequences," Qin Wentian domineeringly stated. Initially, he didn't want to use such methods. However, this was what Chu Tianjiao had taught him. Since Chu Tianjiao dared to use Mustang and Luo Huan to threaten him, from now onwards, for the sake of annihilating Chu, he would do anything. The old man fell silent, as he stared at Qin Wentian. If anything happens to the little princess, you will have to accompany her to the grave. You overestimate yourself too much. Qin Wenyan stepped out, his gaze landing on Qiu Mo as he walked towards him. The black-robed men beside him followed behind Qin Wenyan. Yi Luyang stared at Qin Wenyan, his eyes filled with an extreme coldness. This brat actually dared to enter the tiger's den? Wasn't he too audacious? Wasn't he worried that the royal clan would disregard the consequences and kill him? A lithe and graceful silhouette abruptly appeared not far away from Qin Wenyan, like a shadow. However, earlier, nobody had seen her before. Such a scene caused the pupils of the old man to narrow. He stared at the lithe and graceful silhouette, as though he wanted to see through her. A clear and cold aura, an aura that pushed people 1,000 miles away. She was like an otherworldly maiden. Just by standing there, she gave off an intense sense of danger. Qin Wenyan laughed. Upon sensing Qing Er's appearance, he actually felt a sense of security in his heart. Maybe Qing Er's strength would truly give him a huge surprise. He continued walking towards Qiu Mo, and even walked past the old man. However, nobody dared to make a move. How do you want to die? Qin Wenyan stared at Qiu Mo. At this moment, Qiu Mo's astral soul erupted as he roared in rage. Why aren't you guys killing him yet? Nobody bothered with him. Qin Wenyan's footsteps flickered as he grabbed towards Qiu Mo. Qiu Mo's countenance drastically changed. With a howl of rage, a powerful attack blasted towards Qin Wenyan. However, when Qin Wenyan's arm landed, Qiu Mo felt an irresistible force boring down on his body. Gotcha! Qiu Mo's palms were directly broken. Qin Wenyan's hand was still clutching onto his throat as he dragged Qiu Mo to the ground, as though he was dragging a dead dog. At this moment, Qin Wenyan's killing intent gushed forth in a frenzy, causing Qiu Mo to feel a sense of terror that originated from the depths of his soul. Sister Luo Huan, how do you want him to die? Qin Wenyan laughed as he asked Luo Huan. Chapter 208. Traces of a smile could be seen on Luo Huan's face as she shifted her gaze onto Qiu Mo, whose throat was being held by Qin Wenyan. I'm afraid you won't have the chance to let me have a taste of the benefits of being stubborn tonight. Luo Huan spoke to Qiu Mo. However, the words she spat out gave Qin Wenyan a feeling of extreme coldness. This made Qin Wenyan understand that Qiu Mo had said many humiliating words to his sister Luo Huan. He had never felt such coldness from the cheerful Luo Huan before. Qin Wenyan's palm abruptly trembled as a cracking sound rang out. After which, Qiu Mo let out a howl of agony. One of his arms had been crippled by Qin Wenyan and was now hanging limply by his side. Sis, why don't we make him suffer a fate worse than death? Qin Wenyan smiled at Luo Huan. However, his smile was similarly cold. From the Sky Harmony City all the way here, his heart gradually grew colder and colder. These people had forced him to the point where his heart was made of stone, forcing him to be ruthless and merciless. You decide. Luo Huan's gaze turned gentle. The feeling of being protected by someone truly felt good. Although this person was only his junior brother, Luo Huan truly liked him from the bottom of his heart. Naturally, this wasn't the love between a man and a woman, but rather, it was an indescribable feeling. Don't. Cold sweat seeped out of Qiu Mo's forehead. Of course, he knew what Qin Wenyan meant by living a life worse than death. A cold glint of light abruptly shot towards Qiu Mo, as a pair of eyes as sharp as blades caused Qiu Mo to shiver involuntarily. Qin Wenyan's palms shot out, slamming into Qiu Mo's chest as a surge of energy gushed forth, instantly destroying all the meridians in his body. At the same time, Qin Wenyan lifted his leg and stomped towards Qiu Mo's crotch. Arg. Seeing Qiu Mo lying on the ground like a pile of mud, the people in the surroundings all stared at the youth who was once a youth. Right now, Qin Wenyan, who was about to turn 18, seemed to have already grown up. Mustang had a warm smile on his face. Qin Wenyan's ruthlessness and decisiveness made Mustang feel gratified. Being ruthless to one's enemies was a necessary process for one to grow up in this martial world. Qin Wenyan no longer glanced at Qiu Mo. He inclined his head and stared at Mustang and Luo Huan, who were still tied up. Beside them, there were several experts who could act at any moment. But at this moment, Qin Wenyan suddenly wanted to give it a try. For the sake of Teacher Mustang and Sis Luo Huan, he wanted to take the risk. If anything happens to Teacher Mustang and Sis Luo Huan, immediately issue the order to execute the royal princess. Qin Wentian's ice-cold voice resounded throughout the entire space. After which, he lifted his feet and walked towards Mustang and Luo Huan. The black-robed figures behind him were all stunned. They lifted their feet only to see Qin Wenyan waving his hands, causing their countenances to stiffen as they stared at Qin Wenyan. This fellow was too risky. What if these people really wanted to kill Qin Wenyan? They wouldn't even have the chance to save him. Qin Wenyan was also gambling. He wasn't trying to stop others, but he was betting on the strength of the experts sent by Fairy Qinmei to protect him. Qin Wenyan didn't know why, but for some reason she made Qin Wenyan trust her so much. She didn't speak much and would rarely appear by Qin Wentian's side. But at crucial moments, she would definitely be there. Not only that, even if they took a step back and Qin Er's strength wasn't strong enough, the little princess of Chu was still in his hands. Without Chu Tianjiao's command, these people would definitely not dare to kill him. Stop right there. The old man stared at Qin Wenyan, his voice was ice-cold. Killing intent gushed forth from him, pressing down on Qin Wenyan. However, Qin Wenyan merely glanced at him as he continued walking forward. Wenyan. An expression of astonishment appeared on Luo Huan's face. Had this fellow gone mad? She didn't wish for Qin Wenyan to use such a method to deal with her. To Qin Wenyan, this was too dangerous. Go back. Mustang directly berated. His talent was limited, and his future achievements could be foreseen. But Qin Wenyan was different. He had accepted many disciples, but Qin Wenyan was undoubtedly the most outstanding among them. Naturally, he didn't wish for anything to happen to Qin Wenyan. In fact, Mustang had pinned his hopes on Qin Wenyan, the hope of the Emperor Star Academy. He still hoped that one day the Emperor Star Academy would be able to stand tall once again. How wonderful would that be? Qin Wenyan stared at Mustang as he laughed. The distance between him and the old man got closer and closer, only a few steps away. The coldness that descended upon him grew increasingly intense, yet he still continued walking forward. An intense astral wind buffeted Qin Wentian's body, as a terrifying killing intent gushed forth from the old man. However, not far behind Qin Wenyan, Qin Er's footsteps also shifted slightly. Sensing the killing intent emanating from Qin Wenyan, her brows furrowed. You are truly courting death. The old man coldly stared at Qin Wenyan as he slowly lifted his palms. Qin Wenyan continuously took 2 steps forward, arriving beside Luo Huan, as he prepared to undo the chains binding her. Rumble! The killing intent emanating from the old man completely erupted, as he pushed his palms forwards. But at the same instant, a beam of light flashed, and Qin Wenyan only felt a gust of wind blowing past him. Pooh! A light sound rang out, as the body of the old man was flung through the air. After which, a thunderous sound echoed out, as his body ruthlessly slammed into the azure jadeite dragon seat of the Chu Emperor District. In that instant, the spectators were all dumbstruck, as they stared at the scene before them. How is this possible? The spectators stared at the silhouette of the beautiful silhouette that had repelled the old man. Her face was covered by a veil, yet it was unable to conceal her unparalleled charm. She seemed to be otherworldly, and was so cold that it gave people the feeling that she wasn't from this world. She looked so young, yet how fast was her speed? So fast that even the eyes of the spectators couldn't follow her movements. She was so fast that the powerful Yuanfu realm cultivator was flung through the air with a single strike. The person in charge of the Chu Emperor District didn't even have the time to retaliate before he was injured. However, it was as though nothing had happened. She casually glanced at the old man, and her eyelashes flickered, as though she was frowning, as though she was looking at the old man with displeasure. I won't allow you to touch him. A melodious voice rang out, as though there was a unique magnetism to it, as well as a hint of coldness. Not only that, there were even traces of innocence in her voice. Upon hearing this melodious voice, Qin Wenyan really wanted to hug Qin tightly. What an adorable woman! What a pity she was only responsible for his safety and wouldn't help him deal with the people of Chu. However, with such a supreme expert protecting him, Qin Wenyan was truly grateful. Especially at this moment. Evidently his gamble had paid off. When the people guarding Mustang and Luo Huan saw how easily Qin had repelled the old man, they subconsciously retreated a distance away. No one dared to act rashly, and could only watch as Qin Wenyan released the shackles on Luo Huan and Mustang. We consumed the origin sealing powder. If it wasn't for the fact that they were afraid that you wouldn't show up, they would have crippled our cultivation bases. Luo Huan bitterly smiled. Qin Wenyan finally understood why the shackles were able to bind his teacher and sis. All of a sudden, a silhouette dashed towards Qin Wenyan. Qin Wenyan didn't even move, he only supported Mustang and Luo Huan as they walked back. Boom! Another intense rumbling sound rang out. Qin had sent the expert who had just attacked flying, using the same method she had used against the old man earlier. Her brows furrowed even more, seeming to be very dissatisfied with the result. If you guys continue to act like this, I will really kill you. That crisp sound rang out once again, causing Qin Wenyan to almost burst out laughing. Hearing Qin's tone, it gave off the impression that Qin Wenyan was being bullied. If these people continued to bully Qin Wenyan, she would definitely kill them. The old man wiped the traces of blood from the corner of his mouth as he stared at Qin. His countenance was extremely unsightly to behold. Qin was still as carefree as ever. Seeing the old man staring at her, she furrowed her brows and replied, "I don't like people looking at me like this." The old man was so angered that he spat out a mouthful of blood. Looking at her? She was so domineering, yet he couldn't even look at her? Not only that, her voice gave off the impression that she was the one who was being bullied. What kind of freakish beauty was this? To think that she was so strong that even the old man was injured by Qin. Yet he couldn't even tell how strong Qin was. Qin Wenyan brought Mustang and Luo Huan with him as they flew away, leaving the people behind to stare at each other in dismay. Their silhouettes flickered, only to see several black-robed figures appearing, surrounding Qin Wenyan in the middle of a protective formation. Qin also turned and followed behind Qin Wenyan. For a moment, no one dared to stop them. Such a strange scene might sound ridiculous, but it had actually happened. Qin, you are so adorable. Qin Wenyan smiled at Qin as he noticed Qin walking to his side. Qin's beautiful eyes flashed with contemplation as she stared at Qin Wenyan. Only after a long time did she reply in a low voice, "Adorable? Is that good or bad?" Qin Wenyan stumbled as he fell to the ground. He stared at Qin as though he was looking at a monster. He was truly convinced. "Of course it's good, it means extremely good." Qin Wenyan spoke as though he was coaxing a girl. Qin still didn't understand. Her aura was as cold as ever, but she still nodded her head lightly. Adorable, it means extremely good. Chapter 209. An hour after the battle in the Chu Emperor district ended, the Qin clan's troops began to retreat in an orderly fashion. Although this duel had the intention of coordinating with Qin Wenyan, it was also a way for the Qin clan to probe the strength of the royal clan. To the Qin clan, the earlier the battle ended, the better. Right now, they knew that the Chu country was currently mobilizing the various armies and was heading towards the perimeter of the royal capital. Although the Qin clan's reserve troops were gradually advancing, the difficulty of this battle would undoubtedly increase. Chu Tianjiao stood atop the city walls. The setting sun was like blood. The corpses on the ground were exceptionally eye-catching, and there were even several powerful experts who had fallen in this battle. Many years had passed since the death of the Wu King, but the Qin clan had once again displayed their shocking combat prowess to the people of Chu. Chu Tianjiao felt as though he was looking at the elite troops that had followed Qin Wu to conquer the south and the north. Only this time around, the spearhead of the Qin clan's troops was pointed directly at the royal capital. Looking at the faces of the retreating soldiers, even though many of their friends had died, their eyes were still as cold and sharp as ever. It was as though the anger that had been suppressed in their hearts for so many years was about to explode forth. Looking at the Chu army, they were silent, filled with grief, and their will to fight had withered away. This made the people of Chu feel that after so many years of peace, the Chu army's edge had already been smoothed out. Yet, their opponents were like tigers and wolves that thirsted for revenge. Chu Qua! Chu Tianjiao called out to the middle-aged man beside him. Your Majesty! Chu Qua was Chu Tianjiao's uncle. Chu Tianjiao's father had bestowed upon him the title of the Han King, allowing him to lead the elite troops of the royal capital. Chu Tianjiao stared at Chu Qua as he bowed. Uncle, I'll leave this place to you. Your Majesty! Chu Qua supported Chu Tianjiao's body, his eyes filled with determination. As long as the city exists, the people will survive. As long as the city is destroyed, the people will die. Okay, uncle, the people here are all yours to command. Chu Tianjiao continued. There was no need for him to instruct Chu Qua. He still believed in Chu Qua's capabilities. Chu Tianjiao left. He naturally knew that the little princess had been kidnapped, and that Mustang and Luo Huan had been brought away by Qin Wenin. Who was that mysterious girl that had suddenly appeared? It seemed like he had truly underestimated the storm that was brewing in the skies of Chu. As for the Yuanfu cultivators following behind Qin Wenin, Chu Tianjiao had already guessed where they came from. With such a powerful force, there weren't many transcendent powers in the royal capital that would be able to gather them. Eliminating the possibility, he could only guess that the Mo clan and the Divine Weapon Pavilion were the only ones who could do so. The old grandfather of the Mo clan was a character whose name shook the entire Chu country. However, his ambition wasn't to fight for power. Rather, his heart was focused on the martial path, and he hoped to break through the bottleneck one day. He would frequently roam the outside world and had seen many things. His heart was proud and arrogant, and he didn't care about the small Chu country. He wouldn't allow his clan to participate in the disputes of the Chu country. Since that was the case, the only option left was the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Unfortunately, the current him could not touch the Divine Weapon Pavilion. If not, the situation would be even worse. To the royal clan of Chu, the development of the situation today could be said to be a humiliation. They had already disregarded the face of the emperor and used Qin Wenin to threaten Qin Wenin. Yet, they were countered by Qin Wenin using the same method. Take this command medallion and head to the dark forest. Gather the troops trained by the martial palace. Chu Tianjiao passed the command medallion to one of his trusted aides. That aide was like a shadow, and after receiving the command medallion, he vanished without a trace. Although the Qin clan's guards had grown stronger over the years, the royal clan hadn't been idle either. However, he had always suspected that other than the troops trained by the royal clan, there was another mysterious power hidden within the dark forest. Back then, he had plotted against Qin Chuan and Qin Yao in the Black Stronghold precisely because he wanted to find out the location of that mysterious power. Pay a visit to the Jiang clan. Chu Tianjiao indifferently stated. The Jiang clan of the royal capital was also a major clan, and their strength was even stronger than the Yi clan. Similar to the Mo clan, the Jiang clan belonged to a power that the royal clan had no way of controlling. Other than the Mo clan and the Jiang clan, there were still a few other major powers within the royal capital that wouldn't listen to the commands of the royal clan so easily. This time around, he could only personally pay a visit to the Jiang clan. At the same time, all sorts of rumors spread throughout the royal capital. The most popular rumor was undoubtedly that the Chu clan had already reached the end of its days and would become history in the coming storm. The Mo clan was located at the west side of the royal capital. At this moment, within the Mo clan, Mo Qingqing brought Qin Wenin along as they entered. Although they were being watched by countless people, Qin Wenin didn't need to care about Qin Er's strength. However, Qin Er refused to show herself. Qin Wenin couldn't even find her location. Most probably, only when his safety was threatened would Qin Er suddenly appear. That powerful woman who could appear and disappear unpredictably was actually so adorable. This made Qin Wendian speechless. If Qin knew the meaning of the word cute, how would Qin Wendian feel when he saw the cold Qin as cute? She had always been cultivating with her master and would always listen to her master's words. Since her master wanted her to protect Qin Wendian, she had to do it. As for the ways of the world outside, she didn't know much. This was also the reason why Fairy Qingmei had warned her to not listen to the flowery words of Qin Wendian before they left. I was thinking, cute, could flowery words be considered flowery words? Lass, you finally returned. Mo Qingqing's father, Mo Tianlin, walked out of the pavilion and glared at Mo Qingqing when he saw her. She lowered her head slightly, as a mischievous smile appeared on her face as she called out, "Father." Perhaps she would only reveal such an expression in front of her own father. "You still have me, your father?" Mo Tianlin coldly stated. Mo Qingqing smiled. "Father, didn't I return? Don't be angry at me." Mph. Mo Tianlin snorted as he glanced at Qin Wendian, who was beside Mo Qingqing. This fellow had caused a huge storm in the royal capital. At this time, Mo Qingqing brought Qin Wendian to the Mo clan. Her intentions were clear without words. This caused Mo Tianlin to sigh. Indeed, when a girl grows up, it's hard to keep her at home. This lass had truly grown up. Naturally, Mo Tianlin also liked Qin Wendian. This was especially so after witnessing Qin Wendian's performance on the Jun Lin Banquet's battle platform. He liked the young and frivolous Qin Wendian, and even wanted to matchmake Qin Wendian and Mo Qingqing. However, Mo Tianlin had returned a few days ago, and it seemed that he was planning for Mo Qingqing's future. If that was the case, he wouldn't be able to make the decision. But at this moment, a beautiful young lady hopped over, giggling when she saw Mo Qingqing. "Qingqing, you even brought him home? Your development is so fast. Don't be serious." Mo Qingqing glared at Nolan as she snuck a glance at her father. She wanted to see what Mo Tianlin's attitude was, but she only saw that Mo Tianlin's countenance was as calm as ever. She had no idea what he was thinking in his heart. "Let's go and see your grandpa." Mo Tianlin spoke to Mo Qingqing. "Grandpa is back?" Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes flickered. Mo Tianlin nodded as he walked to the side. Mo Qingqing had a bitter expression on her face as she glanced at Qin Wendian. After which, a sweet smile appeared on her face as she nudged Qin Wendian's hand. Qin Wendian smiled and nodded when he saw the sweet smile in Mo Qingqing's eyes. The two of them walked together. Mo Tianlin brought them to a pavilion, where two people were currently playing chess. "Ha, good fellow, I didn't expect you to be so proficient in chess as well." A hearty laughter rang out. Qin Wendian contemplated the old man, who seemed to be around 50 years of age. He exuded an imposing aura, and should be the leader of the Mo clan, known as the most terrifying character under the Heavenly Dipper realm in the Chu country. Opposite of the old man was a young man around 20 years of age. It was impossible to guess his exact age, but the aura of this young man was extraordinary. Just a single glance was enough to make one remember him. Life is like a game of chess, and Old Mo's chess is profound and powerful. The young man laughed. "I'm already old, I'm not as sharp as you." Old Mo humbly replied, causing Mo Tianlin to click his tongue in wonder. Ever since the old man returned, he had always been together with this young man. Not only that, the old man who always had his eyes on the top of his head was actually extremely humble in front of this young man. This made Mo Tianlin feel that this young man was no ordinary character. At this moment, the old man's gaze shifted over to Mo Qingqing, and upon seeing Qin Wendian standing together with Mo Qingqing, he couldn't help but frown. "Father, this is Qingqing's good friend, Qin Wendian." Mo Tianlin introduced to the old man. "Huh?" The old man lightly nodded his head. He had heard of Qin Wendian before, the #1 ranker of the Jun Lin Banquet, a rare genius in the Chu country who had created many miracles. In the entire Chu country, Qin Wendian's fame was unparalleled. However, this was only the Chu country after all. Given the old man's vision, he wouldn't be too bothered about it. "Hua Xiao, young Master Hua." The old man introduced the young man before him as he laughed. Qingqing, Grandpa shamelessly asked young Master Hua to help you find a good teacher. Young Master Hua agreed, and I wish to send you to the Grand Xia Empire for cultivation. Staying here would be a waste of your time. Mo Qingqing's beautiful eyes froze, as her heart was in chaos. The old man actually wanted to send her to the Grand Xia Empire for cultivation? If that was the case, wouldn't she be separated from Qin Wenyan? Upon seeing Mo Qingqing's countenance, Hua Xiaoyan's eyes flashed with a trace of emotion. Such a countenance, even in the Grand Xia Empire, could be considered a rare beauty. When old man Mo told him about it, he had thought that the old man was exaggerating, but who would have thought that it was actually the truth? This made him feel extremely interested. However, there were quite a few powerful characters who came to the Grand Xia Forest recently, and some of them were even on good terms with him. It wouldn't be difficult for him to introduce a good teacher to Mo Qingqing. Just based on the countenance of Mo Qingqing, he really had to find a good teacher for her. And just like what Hua Xiaoyan had thought, there were indeed many people from the Grand Xia Empire who came to the Chu country. It was just that they all kept a low profile. In the airspace of Chu, Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting were together. Gazing downwards, a smile appeared on Ouyang Guangxing's face. This Chu country is truly remote. Did my friend Qin Wenyan grow up here? Other than Ouyang Guangxing, those from the Green Cloud Pavilion had also arrived. Qian Mingyu had already broken through to Yuanfu, and as she stared at the tiny royal capital, she couldn't help but sigh in her heart. The Chu country actually had a genius who could easily suppress the swallow swordsman, Mu Baifei. She couldn't help but wonder how he was doing now. Ever since the refinement grounds of the Celestial Lake, there were many who couldn't forget Qin Wenyan. Qian Mingyu was one of them. Chapter 210. In the Mo residence, Mo Qingqing couldn't help but ask in a low voice, "Grandpa, I wish to roam the world by myself." Mo Qingqing had already made up her mind. After the storm in Chu was over, she would roam Grand Xia together with Qin Wenyan. "You don't know what's good for you." Old man Mo berated, causing Mo Qingqing to lower her head, not daring to look at him. Old man Mo's prestige in the Mo residence was extremely high. Even her father, Mo Tianlin, didn't dare to disobey him. Usually, he wouldn't interfere in the affairs of the Mo residence, but once he made a decision, it would be extremely difficult to change his mind. Roam the world? You're only at the initial Yuanfu realm, and your looks are so outstanding. Do you know how dangerous it would be if you roam the world? Even I have to be extremely careful when I roam the outside world. If I'm not careful, my bones might be buried in a foreign land. Old man Mo lectured, "Young Master Hua is willing to introduce you to a sect. This is exactly what I've been looking for. In the future, if you enter a powerful sect, wouldn't it be even better to travel the world with your fellow disciples?" But Mo Qingqing stubbornly refused. "Qingqing." Mo Tianlin interrupted her, smiling bitterly in his heart. He knew what his daughter was thinking. Qin Wenyan was indeed outstanding, and if he could really resolve the commotion in Chu, he wouldn't object to Mo Qingqing and Qin Wenyan being together. But now that old man Mo wanted to find a good sect for Mo Qingqing, it was for Qingqing's own good. As for feelings, they could be temporarily put aside. Old man Mo indifferently glanced at Qin Wenyan. Evidently, he had also guessed the reason for his granddaughter's abnormal behavior today. "Lass, you've never roamed the world before, so you don't know how vast it is. Our Chu country is like an ant when compared to the Grand Xia Empire. Any heavenly dipper sovereign from Grand Xia would be able to view the people of Chu as ants, not to mention the transcendent powers of Grand Xia." Old man Mo evidently doted on Mo Qingqing a lot. His tone was much gentler as he continued, "In Chu, your talent can be considered outstanding. That's why Grandpa doesn't want to hold you back. Let me ask you, do you know what a mandate is?" I've heard Grandpa mention before that the mandate of martial Daos is formed through the comprehension of one's astral soul. It's extremely powerful and is extremely useful for breaking through to the Yuanfu realm. Mo Qingqing replied in a low voice. "What you said is correct. There are countless types of mandates. For example, the mandate of wind, the mandate of thunder, the mandate of fire, the mandate of blood, etc. Every type of mandate can give rise to different types of tyrannical powers. For example, the mandate of force, the first level is force. This level is further divided into the initial realm, advanced realm, transformation realm, and perfection realm. At the initial boundary, your strength would be 2 times stronger. At the advanced boundary, your strength would be 4 times stronger. At the transformation boundary, your strength would be 8 times stronger. At the perfection boundary, your strength would be over 10 times stronger. Think about it. If someone at the same cultivation level had the mandate of the perfection boundary, would his opponent be able to withstand a single strike from him? Old Mo slowly explained, as Qin Wenyan listened attentively. Mandates of martial daos, mandate of force, these should be the abilities he had comprehended. After stellar martial cultivators reach Yuanfu, the further they go, the harder it gets to cultivate. This is especially so for stepping from Yuanfu to Heavenly Dipper. This is an extremely huge barrier. One of the reasons for this is because it requires an extremely large amount of astral energy to support it. The other reason is that not only do you have to comprehend the first level of mandates of martial daos, you have to comprehend the second level of mandates of martial daos before you can condense your astral nova. Father, what is the second level of mandates of martial daos? Mo Tonlin was completely engrossed as he listened. Before this, his cultivation base wasn't high enough, so old Mo didn't tell him about this. The first level of mandates of martial daos is the foundation. It's something that will never change. The first level of the mandate of force is strength, and as for the second level, it's something that can change. One can say that the second level of mandates of martial daos is a transformation of the first level, a sublimation. Not only that, I've heard that there's an even stronger third level of mandates of martial daos. The third level of mandates of martial daos can even manifest a constellation. That's the legendary celestial phenomenon realm. Old Mo's eyes were filled with yearning. He had roamed the Grand Xia Empire and had an intense yearning towards that legendary realm. The celestial phenomenon realm. After the Heavenly Dipper realm, he didn't even have the chance to witness how terrifying that level of power was. If it was an expert proficient in the mandate of blood, the moment he manifested his constellation, he would be able to transform millions of people into a rain of blood. That was the power that could penetrate the heavens and earth. Celestial phenomenon realm. Qin Wenyan thought of that statue. So it turned out that the statue was a legendary expert. He also thought of the group of people outside the Qin Heavenly Divine Sect. Those were all terrifying existences at the celestial phenomenon realm. Yet, this group of people were all killed by the middle-aged man who seemed to be his father. In that case, how strong was he? Was he at the peak of celestial phenomenon? Or was he even stronger than celestial phenomenon? With a single thought, he could manifest all the constellations in the Heavenly Dipper realm. How terrifying was that? Father, what level has your mandate of Tao reached? Mo Tianlin asked. I'm ashamed to say this, but after so many years, I finally broke through to the transformation realm during my roaming the world. Not only that I have 3 astral souls, yet I've only comprehended a single mandate of Tao. But even so, I'm still able to dominate the Yuanfu realm in Chu. Old Mo's voice contained a hint of arrogance. After which, he turned to Mo Qingqing and stated, Qingqing, after saying so much, you should understand what I mean, right? This world is truly vast. You should go out and take a look. If you join a prestigious sect, you will be able to avoid too many detours. Mo Tianlin and the rest all had expressions of shock on their faces. Old Mo's mandate of Tao had actually reached the transformation realm? No wonder the people of Chu feared him so much. Seems like there were indeed benefits to roaming the world. Senior, you don't have to join a prestigious sect in order to comprehend a mandate of Tao. Qin Wenyan spoke in a low voice as he bowed to old Mo. He didn't mean to be disrespectful. He felt that in order to achieve success on the martial path, other than having a great teacher, one had to depend more on one's own hard work and talent. Naturally, luck was also an important factor, just like how he had comprehended the mandate of Tao when he entered the dark forest. Old Mo furrowed his brows as he unhappily replied, "What do you know? In Chu, how many Yuanfu cultivators have comprehended a mandate of Tao? Back then, due to a stroke of good fortune, I only managed to comprehend a mandate of Tao when I was at the 6th level of Yuanfu. It took me tens of years before I stepped into the transformation realm today. Do you know how difficult it is to comprehend a mandate of Tao?" As for young Master Hua, he's currently at the 4th level of Yuanfu and has already comprehended a mandate of Tao for over a year. This is the disparity between us. Old Mo coldly stated, "Truly, the ignorant are fearless." Qin Wenyan saw the strict attitude of Old Man Mo and knew that his earlier words had angered Old Man Mo. Hence, he didn't argue any further. If he were to display his will of mandate now, Old Man Mo might think that he was intentionally causing him to be unable to step down from the stage, slapping his face. Such a misunderstanding was something Qin Wenyan didn't want to see. Senior's teachings are right. Qin Wenyan bitterly smiled. However, it wasn't as if he didn't gain anything today. After listening to Old Mo's words, he gained a better understanding of the mandate of Tao. Not only was it an extremely tyrannical ability, it could also pave the way for him to step into Heavenly Dipper in the future. Currently, he had only comprehended the mandate of Force from the Heavenly Hammer Astral Soul. In that case, his 2nd and 3rd astral souls weren't inferior to the Heavenly Hammer Astral Soul in the slightest. Hence, there was a chance for him to comprehend the other 2 mandates. Young people should be more humble. "You can leave now." Old Mo waved his hands at Qin Wenyan, ordering him to leave. Qin Wenyan froze for a moment before bowing. "Junior will take his leave." "I'll send him off," Mo Qingqing stated in a low voice. After which, she ignored Old Mo's objections and directly left together with Qin Wenyan, causing Old Mo's eyes to widen in anger. After which, he turned to Hua Xiaoyun and stated, "This child, it's all my fault for spoiling her too much. Don't worry about it. If she really has the talent Old Mo spoke of, I can introduce her to a Heavenly Dipper sovereign as a master. Not only that, she would be able to join one of the transcendent powers of the 9 continents." Hua Xiaoyun replied calmly. This old man thanks you so much." Old Mo laughed heartily as he sighed in his heart. Looking at Hua Xiaoyun's magnanimity, compared to Qin Wentian's ignorance, this was the difference between them. Actually, in his heart, Old Mo had already made up his mind about Hua Xiaoyun and Qin Wenyan. Hence, his thoughts were naturally biased against Qin Wenyan. Even though Qin Wenyan had behaved humbly, he still felt that Qin Wenyan was too young and ignorant. Mo Qingqing and Qin Wenyan walked in the Mo residence. Mo Qingqing leaned against Qin Wenyan as she tugged on his hand, whispering in a low voice, "Wenyan, Grandpa's personality is always like this. Please don't take it to heart." "I know, you don't have to explain to me." Qin Wenyan smiled. As someone who stood at the peak of Yuanfu in Chu, he would naturally be proud and arrogant. Not only that, he would frequently roam the Grand Xia Empire, and would naturally look down on those from Chu. "In that case, don't be angry." Mo Qingqing playfully laughed, as she shook Qin Wentian's arm. Qin Wentian smiled as he nodded his head. He wasn't so lacking in bearing. "Oi oi, what a pair of lovers." Nolan, who was following behind, laughed. Mo Qingqing turned her head and rolled her eyes. The current her was much more natural compared to before. After all, in her heart, she had already treated Qin Wenyan as her other half. Hence, she didn't really care about what others thought of her. "If you have the ability, go find one yourself." Mo Qingqing joked. "I can't be compared to you. The #1 beauty of Chu, with countless suitors." Nolan's lips twitched as they walked out of the Mo residence, only to see a person waiting outside. Upon seeing him, Qin Wenyan couldn't help but be stunned for a moment before a smile appeared on his face. "Long time no see." Immortal Drunken Wine smiled at Qin Wenyan, his hands still holding onto a flask of wine. "Looking for me?" Qin Wenyan was somewhat bewildered. "Mitchum, there aren't many people in the royal capital who don't know that you have entered the Mo residence. Why, are you here to propose marriage?" Immortal Drunken Wine glanced at Mo Qingqing, who was standing beside Qin Wenyin. Not so fast. Qin Wenyin shrugged his shoulders. He didn't deny that he was here to propose marriage, only saying that it wouldn't be so fast. This caused a sweet smile to appear on Mo Qingqing's face. Do you have time to drink a cup or two? There's someone who wishes to meet you. Immortal Drunken Wine got straight to the point. Sure. Qin Wenyin straightforwardly agreed. He was also very curious. Why would Immortal Drunken Wine run errands for someone? Who was it that wanted to meet him? Chapter 211. Qin Wenyin followed Immortal Drunken Wine to a small inn. Back then, when he was chased by Luo Qianqiu, he encountered the black-winged condor. When he exited the dark forest, he passed by this inn and saw Immortal Drunken Wine and a young man with an extraordinary demeanor. Now, the person Immortal Drunken Wine brought him to meet was none other than the young man from before. After our last parting, the young man from before has already shaken the entire Chu country. The affairs of the world are truly wondrous. The young man smiled as he saw Qin Wenyin walking over. Qin Wenyin had already felt that this young man was extraordinary. However, Immortal Drunken Wine said that although this young man was righteous, he couldn't cultivate. Living in the royal capital, yet unable to live in peace, how can one's name shake the entire Chu country? Qin Wenyin sat down and laughed. If it wasn't for the fact that he had some good fortune and Qing Er's protection, he would have to be extremely careful even when walking on the streets, let alone chatting and drinking wine here. The young man stared at Qin Wenyin as he sighed in his heart. Such a young man actually became the mortal enemy of the royal clan. Maybe, when Chu Tianjiao wanted to make a move against the Qin clan, he never imagined that a young man from the Qin clan would be able to change the entire Chu country. Now, the power behind Qin Wenyin couldn't be underestimated, not to mention the fact that he would continue to grow in the future. Back then you asked me who I was. I replied that we met because of wine, and if we met again, we would be friends. Now, I tell you that I'm Chu Wei, the elder brother of Chu Tianjiao, from the royal clan. What do you think? Chu Wei sipped on his wine, smiling as he looked at Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin froze for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure. The affairs of the world were indeed wondrous. Although he had a favorable impression of Chu Wei, he was still the crown prince of Chu. Seeing that Qin Wenyin was silent, Chu Wei laughed. Could it be that because of my identity, you don't want to be friends with me? The royal clan of Chu wants my life, wanting to annihilate the Qin clan, destroying the Emperor Star Academy, and killing my teacher and fellow apprentices. Qin Wenyin stared at Chu Wei. Although his voice was calm, the meaning behind his words was clear. Since the royal clan of Chu treated him like this, the ending was already set in stone. One of them would be destroyed. Chu Mang. Chu Wei called out. After which, Qin Wenyin saw a silhouette walking in from outside the inn. This person had a tall stature and exuded a powerful aura. His eyes were very large, and when he stared at Qin Wenyin, he actually caused Qin Wenyin to feel a strong sense of pressure. Chu Mang of the royal clan of Chu, the second brother of Chu Tianjiao. Chu Wei stared at Qin Wenyin. He also has another identity, the number 1 prodigy of Chu. I've heard of it for a long time. Qin Wenyin laughed. He had been in Chu for over a year. How could he not have heard of the name of the top 10 prodigies? Me and second brother have always been against father and Chu Tianjiao's plans. Not only that, my younger sisters have never participated in these disputes. Although Chu Tianjiao wields the most authority in the Chu country, he cannot represent the royal clan. Chu Wei seriously stated. And then? From the meaning of Chu Wei's words, it seemed that he wanted to draw a line between Chu Tianjiao and the royal clan. He wanted to eliminate the enmity between Qin Wenyin and the royal clan. However, Chu Tianjiao was the emperor of Chu. From a certain perspective, he represented the royal clan of Chu. Before my father died, he wanted me to promise to protect the bloodline of the royal clan, and at the same time, to help third brother. I agreed to the former, but not the latter. Chu Wei continued, I won't ask you to release my younger sister immediately. I can say that she is innocent, but your teacher and senior sister are innocent as well. Hence, you have your own standpoint. I only hope that you won't harm her. Just treat it as me, her elder brother, pleading for mercy on her behalf." After which, Chu Wei raised his wine cup to Qin Wenyin. Qin Wenyin hesitated for a moment, before he too raised his cup and drained it. "Many thanks." Chu Wei smiled. "I can guarantee you that I will absolutely not use my strength to help Chu Tianjiao. In truth, I didn't wish for war to break out in Chu. Wouldn't it be a better life for the various transcendent powers and academies to coexist in harmony? Sadly, things don't go according to one's wishes." After which, Chu Wei helplessly shook his head as he drank another cup of wine. "Since you have ambitions in your heart, why don't you fight for them?" Immortal Drunken Wine spoke to Qin Wenyin, his words causing a look of bewilderment to appear on Qin Wentian's face. The word "fight for them," when used on Chu Wei, meant that he wanted to seize power. That kind of life is also extremely tiring. Chu Wei sighed. Maybe outsiders wouldn't be able to imagine, but as the crown prince of the royal clan, he couldn't cultivate. How many things had he faced since he was young, and how much he had sacrificed in order to protect himself? "Qin Wenyan, I hope that we can become friends. If there's an opportunity, I will look for you again." Chu Wei smiled at Qin Wenyan, before standing up and departing together with Chu Mang. Qin Wenyan pondered over Chu Wei's words. What did he mean by opportunity? Immortal Drunken Wine patted Qin Wenyan on his shoulder as he laughed. "You and I can be considered friends. I can use my character to guarantee that Chu Wei is absolutely trustworthy. If it weren't for his special traits, he would have long since been unable to survive in the royal clan. Let's drink a cup." Qin Wenyan didn't continue on this topic. He raised his cup to Immortal Drunken Wine with a smile. Just like Immortal Drunken Wine's joke, the moment Qin Wenyan stepped foot into the Mo clan, the news of him entering the Mo clan spread like wildfire. Currently, there were too many pairs of eyes in the royal capital staring at him. Qin Wentian's every action was the focus of attention. The reason why Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting came here was because of the rumor of the demonic astral in the dark forest. However, that place was currently occupied by a bunch of old fellows, and juniors like them could only stand to the side. This made Ouyang Guangxing extremely depressed, and thus, he decided to come to the royal capital of Chu, which was located right next to the dark forest. In Chu, Ouyang Guangxing only knew of Qin Wenyan. Not only that, Qin Wenyan seemed to be extremely famous in the royal capital. After Ouyang Guangxing inquired about it, he was immediately informed that Qin Wenyan had gone to the Mo residence located in the western region of the royal capital. However, after thinking about it, Ouyang Guangxing felt that it was normal. Based on the strength Qin Wenyan had displayed, how could he not be famous in a small country like Chu? Even if he went to the Grand Xia Empire, it would only take 5 to 10 years for him to rise to fame. Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting led a group of people as they arrived at the Mo residence. Upon seeing the group of experts descending from the skies, the people of the Mo residence were instantly alarmed. Especially when they noticed the extraordinary auras of these people, they didn't seem to be from Chu at all. When Mo Qingqing arrived with the members of the Mo clan, she couldn't help but feel astonished when she saw Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting. Ouyang Guangxing also noticed her, but only after a short moment did he recognize her. "Mo Qingqing, so the Mo residence is actually your clan. No wonder he's here." Ouyang Guangxing immediately guessed that this was Mo Qingqing's clan the moment he saw her. He couldn't help but to laugh heartily. He had met Mo Qingqing before the Celestial Lake refinement grounds, but at that time, Mo Qingqing was also dressed in male clothing. And now, Mo Qingqing had changed back to her original appearance, causing Ouyang Guangxing's eyes to light up. Seems like that fellow really had good judgment. Not bad, she was indeed worthy of Qin Wenyan. If it weren't for the fact that the people of the Mo residence knew of Ouyang Guangxing's thoughts, they would probably be angered to death. When he saw Mo Qingqing's beauty, the first thing he thought of was that she was worthy of Qin Wenyan. Naturally, this didn't mean that Ouyang Guangxing was disrespectful towards Mo Qingqing. It was just that his personality was like this, and he treated Qin Wenyan as a friend. Mo Qingqing naturally knew that Ouyang Guangxing was referring to Qin Wenyin. She couldn't help but smile. He left not long ago, come in and take a seat. Ouyang Guangxing was somewhat depressed. At this moment, old man Mo also walked over. When he heard that there were people arriving at the Mo residence, he didn't pay too much attention to them. But after he received a report that these people were extraordinary, he personally came to take a look. Upon seeing Ouyang Guangxing, Jiang Ting and the rest, old man Mo couldn't help but be startled in his heart. These people all exuded an extraordinary aura. A person's temperament was nurtured by the environment they were in. This group of people stood there quietly, yet they gave off a sense of steadiness. Although the two young men in the lead were young in age, it was obvious that they were the young master and mistress of the Mo clan. Both of them exuded the aura of descendants of major clans. Old man Mo instantly deduced that these people were from the major powers of the Grand Xia. People from the Ouyang and Jiang clan? Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting? Hua Xiaoyun's gaze landed on Ouyang Guangxing and Jiang Ting. The Grand Xia Empire was boundlessly vast, and the influence of the younger generation was limited. Everyone might have heard of some names, but none of them knew who they were. Ouyang Guangxing stared at Hua Xiaoyun as he asked. Hua clan Hua Xiaoyun. Hua Xiaoyun faintly replied. The Hua clan was similar to the Ouyang clan. They were also one of the transcendent powers of the 9 continents. So it's you, the spoiled brat. Ouyang Guangxing laughed, causing Hua Xiaoyun to furrow his brows. I heard that your elder brother is here as well. Where is he? Ouyang Guangxing asked Hua Xiaoyun. He didn't expect to meet someone from the Hua clan here. What's wrong? Do you want to be on the same level as my elder brother? Hua Xiaoyun's eyes flashed with a cold arrogance. Hua Xiaoyun's elder brother had always been his pride, and was also the pride of the entire Hua clan. I'll slowly try to catch up to him. He's my idol after all. But of course, this is only temporary. Ouyang Guangxing's eyes flashed with arrogance. He had no choice but to admit that the young man from the Hua clan was indeed a character at the peak of the Grand Xia Empire. In your dreams, Hua Xiaoyun snorted in disdain. What the hell are you so arrogant for? I'll only need a few more years to surpass you. Ouyang Guangxing unhappily stated, his words causing Hua Xiaoyun's countenance to sink as he felt that he had lost all face. Old man Mo, who was standing beside Hua Xiaoyun, didn't say anything. He only listened quietly. He and Hua Xiaoyun were acquainted by chance, and when he saw how extraordinary Hua Xiaoyun's words were, and how he had already comprehended the mandate at such a young age, he decided to befriend Hua Xiaoyun. Now, it seemed that Hua Xiaoyun had an elder brother who was even more terrifying than Hua Xiaoyun. As for the group of people in front of them, they were also from the aristocratic clans. And from Ouyang Guangxing's tone, it seemed that they were even more outstanding than Hua Xiaoyun. This caused old man Mo to be extremely bewildered. That last Qingqing, when did she become acquainted with such characters? As expected of his granddaughter, her talent and countenance were incomparably outstanding. As long as she left the Chu country, her future prospects would definitely surpass his. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.